mistakes were made. Hello and welcome to the Regret Podcast. How are you feeling, Mathwiz, after having two unexpected chapters dumped unceremoniously onto your lap as you're finishing your reading at the last minute, like an hour late, because of course.
I'm gonna be honest. I had, as I was reading through Rave, I was thinking of like a million different jokes that I could open with to start off the podcast. I got nothing, man. Like there's too much. There's too much for me to. There's too much to process.
It is something. So anyway, in case you are unfamiliar with the Nen Show Podcast, how it works is we go through Shounen series, long-running Shounen series, one at a time, arc by arc, and discuss them. For first, we also usually respond to comments, so if you have anything interesting to say about the stretch of chapters, go ahead and leave it. You know, we encourage reading along, just because, I mean, especially in this case, because actually it's funny, in my Discord server, people are enjoying this one much more than I am. Like, people are like, it's fine, I'll get like 6 out of 10, maybe 7 here, there are some 5, more 5s, I'd say. I'm more like in the 3 to 4 range, personally. I'm just, anyway, but,
Man, it's been so long since we've had to, because usually at the start of each manga or whatever we read, we do our reintroduction of the Nen Show. So it's just weird. It's been so long because we just did One Piece, which was 20 episodes.
Last time we did it was Anime Expo. That was the last time we started a series, yes. So yeah, we normally respond to comments, though not at the start of a series. So next time we will be responding to the comments from this episode, hopefully, unless we forget, because that happens. We also discuss our personal histories with the series because, you know, in some cases, like with Naruto, we both had kind of not really finished the series, so we kind of remembered things. With Bleach, neither of us had read it, so we kind of went through like we don't. So in the case of spoilers, Mathwiz, this is your first time reading Rave, I believe.
Yep, I know nothing about Rave. I know nothing about Fairy Tail. I know nothing about Mashima. So yeah,
now you know more than you wished. So yeah, and well, you did watch the tirade on Fairy Tail, right? My famous video series.
I did. It has been a while though.
Yeah,
and that was mostly on Fairy Tail, not Rave. So
the last episode was on both of them, kind of. But yeah.
So I don't even know how much of that I remember, because it's been a while since I watched it. So
I don't even know how much of that I remember, and I made it. Yeah, I've talked about it on the One Piece podcast. I don't particularly think the tirade is any good anymore, mostly because of like how I consume media has changed, and like I'll probably be talking about here because but I do have an extended history with Hiro Mashima, especially Fairy Tail, so I'm looking forward to that more than Rave. But rereading Rave in itself has been interesting because like I'm noticing foreshadowing like to things that still maybe won't make sense in some ways, but make more sense than I'd assumed, and I fucking missed a lot of shit. Like, I was looking through my old notes, and there was just so much, like, anger, and also kind of, like, forgetting shit and missing the point, and I'm like, this is the kind of shit I don't like anymore. I don't like it when people say the same shit about other things, so, like, why is it fine for me to say the same shit even about Hiro Mashima stuff, which is kind of infamous? And, like, it's not... I don't think it's great. I don't like it personally. It's like nothing. Like there was one moment that made me cry for reasons not really related to Rave, and that I will talk about because that's probably the most interesting thing in this stretch of chapters.
Is Rave a 10 out of 10?
Yes, it made me cry. It's a 10 out of 10. That's how it goes. Not even true. I cry like a baby a lot, so no. Why couldn't we have just discussed Aikatsu Stars instead? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I have read Rave once before, but because Mathwiz hasn't, and I expect most people watching have not, we will only... No spoilers, of course, as per usual.
Unless Craftsdwarf does what happened in One Piece, where, like, occasionally a spoiler will slip through.
Oh, and yes, we have read Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece on the show, and we're also pretty familiar with some other ones, like Hunter x Hunter mostly is the one that seems to come up. So sometimes we'll compare or use examples, or like a common one is the Obito thing, where the main antagonist is trying to force the protagonist to be more like them or something like that, which has that, so I don't think that happens in this stretch, but just an example of something that comes up before. It's the Nen Show's been going for a little while at this point, so yeah.
Now, wait, what is like the arc structure of the Nen Show? Like, was the big three an arc, or was that a saga? Like, are we breaking it down? Like, was there a Naruto arc? Was there a Bleach arc? Or are those just was that like the
no,
three
I'd
act
say
structure?
Yeah, they're arcs. The was Bleach the low point? Is that what you're saying? Oh God. And this is that was Act 1, the big three, and this is gonna be Act 2. Like, this is the low point. Mashima.
Oh God. So it's an even bigger arc.
No, we're keeping it short, luckily. So yeah, getting into the discussion, I suppose, because I don't think we have anything to cover. Just the normal Nen Show stuff, unless I'm forgetting. Because last time we did the One Piece, we did like the character stuff, and I completely forgot that we also used to give like our favorite fights, and we didn't do that for One Piece. Like normally, like in Bleach and Naruto, we were like, oh yeah, these are our favorite fights, but we didn't for One Piece because we were busy with all the fucking characters. Because One Piece has so many characters, we had to make 4 lists of characters, 3 or 4, because there's so many.
And we were a little rushed to finish that last episode because I had to run to go run an errand.
Yeah. Apparently the One Piece one was like 30 seconds shorter than the Naruto final one, so it was, if you didn't have to leave, that would have been our longest Nen Show episode ever. So yeah. I didn't want a 4-hour episode, but it happened anyway. God damn it.
Hello and welcome to the Rave Podcast, where we rave about One Piece more.
Literally anything that's not rave, right? It's like we're trying to avoid the elephant in the room, and the elephant is the reason you're in the room listening to podcasts. So yeah, let's actually talk about rave, because it starts out like it's almost like a JRPG where we got the innocent protagonist who's like disconnected from the world, and then his town gets destroyed because of course it does.
Man,
what's up?
These first like 30 chapters were rough. Like, I was not having a good time. I was just bored.
I told you to start your reading earlier.
I was gonna do that, and then I just forgot. Like, I just forgot about Rave. And so yes, next time I will be better.
Let's hope. Because that's the thing, the reading isn't going to get shorter, because I wanted to keep it fast, but that means reading a lot of chapters. Like, Rave as a whole is like a little bit shorter than Hunter x Hunter as a whole, and Hunter x Hunter is still ongoing, so, like, the Togashi stuff that we'll be doing later is way shorter, so...
Okay, well, part of that is also, Mashima just dropping 2 chapters on me that aren't actually chapters. So, like, oh, I have 2 chapters to go. Oh, wait, here's an extra 70 pages of...
Yeah, so it's technically 76 chapters of reading, which I did not warn Mathwiz about. So she was trying to, like, oh, I'll catch up before the reading. And then, oh, no, you gotta read 74 pages. Fun times. But yeah, the first arc kind of just it's disconnected from it's on just a random island in the middle of nowhere, but it still like introduces all the 2 main characters who will be recurring and some of the just general setting stuff. Haru, he's just a dumb kid, but his sister raised him, and my sister taught me that is like a catchphrase of his because he keeps saying it.
Yeah, basically a summary of Rave. Hi, my name is Haru, and I have a sister. And that's the podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
And yeah, then there's also Demon Card, who are the antagonists of the series so far. They're bad guys that have dark blings, which I refuse to call them by what every other translation calls them, because, like, it's obviously, like, it started in the late 90s. It's supposed to be, like, a music punk kind of hip-hop thing. It's called Rave. Come on. Like, there's a bunch of music references, Musica, Symphonia. So it's, like, obviously supposed to be... It's magic jewelry. Of course it's going to be called bling, right? So, I'm doing... Yeah, but, and then we find out some of the settings. Oh, yeah, there's a dog that doesn't look like a dog at all, but sometimes he's called a bug. Like, okay, the humor. I get it. It's a series, meant to be read by 7-year-olds. I talked about this in One Piece. One Piece has fart jokes. I don't like humor like that. But I'll accept it because, kids probably find it funny. I don't okay, I'm an adult, whatever. Like, are there moments? I don't think there were any moments in this stretch of chapters that I found funny. There have been moments in the rest of Mashima's stuff I thought were. I have a video called Top 5 Funniest Moments in Fairy Tail. Most of them aren't supposed to be funny, which is part of the joke, but there is one I legitimately find funny. Or did. I don't know if I'll still find it funny. But, so yeah, Mashima's humor does not work with me in the same way, obviously One Piece's humor does. So, sad.
I had some moments that they were kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny. Like, basically anything having to do with Plu was kind of cute, just because, like, he's this weird, not dog, like, even then, like, the narrative doesn't know what he is, like, supposedly.
Right. Mashima is obsessed with this joke because this gag because it's like, yeah, he's like, he's a snowman. He's got a carrot nose, he's white, he's got a round head. So he's like a snowman dog. And then everyone's like, what the fuck are you? And, like, okay, minor spoilers. This never gets any sort of resolution whatsoever. It's just an eternal mystery. Like, what the fuck was Mashima thinking when he came up with this joke?
Well, yeah, because I know it said in the back of one of the volumes that Mashima was like, oh, I made this doodle in, I don't know, school, some form of school, and I don't know, he just brought it back for his manga, which is interesting.
Yes, I think it was also in Magicians, which was his first one-shot that he sent out. I think it wasn't his first one-shot published, because he wrote it first, and it got published, like, second out of 2 one-shots, I think. And yeah, it also has Plu, and it also has a character with an eye tattoo who, like Sieg Hart, he comes up later, but he's special in Mashima's sort of mangography.
The only thing I know about Mashima stories is that there's always a guy with an eye tattoo.
And blue hair, which you can't really see in the manga, but yes. Because yeah,
actually,
there was
I'm not sure why I gendered Plu, because there is the one scene where it's like, what are you? When there's like the dancing, and it's like all the guys are dancing, and Plu starts and then just stops out of nowhere, and it's like, wait, what?
Yep. So anyway, we just get it feels like a story written by someone who hasn't written a story before. Like, this is obviously Mashima's first work. Like, there's a lot of just, like, random convenience of people happening to bump into each other. Like, what happens? Haru goes into the city and he meets Ellie, who's like, she's this experiment, who was made to look like the princess, and she has a super powerful, and he just, like, randomly bumps into her, and it's like, okay, sure. He does that a lot. And, like, even the start, it feels like I said, it feels very just typical fantasy, where, just shit's, like, the town almost gets destroyed or whatever. So yeah, I will say I am glad how his art quickly improves. Like, honestly, I'd say late Rave is probably my favorite art of his, like, period. Like, but early Rave is kind of rough. So yeah.
Yeah, I think early on I was making, I was talking to some people, and I was, like, making comparisons to someone had said, how do I feel about Rave so far? And I was like, oh, I like it about as much as Zombie Powder, which is to say I wasn't enjoying it very much. Like,
not, yeah.
I mean, like, it's definitely, like, it got better as Mashima seemed to kind of figure out what sort of story he was trying to tell. But, like, in terms of, like, the rougher art, that felt very Zombie Powder, like, because obviously, like, it's the first work, and that's what Zombie Powder was for Kubo. It was kind of the precursor to Bleach. And so here with Rave, you can see things getting better as he goes along. I didn't know what the heck was going on for these earlier chapters. I'm like, okay, there are these characters, they're moving around. Here are these plot things.
Yes,
but
the
like,
Rave stones and the dark the blings and the demon card and everything's happening, and there's a bunch of dudes, and they keeps introducing characters like Shuda. He's kind of a big deal. He's like a boss dude of demon card. And then there's like prophecies and the Rave chose you, and he's got to go save the world.
These early arcs, I guess you could call them, they don't last all that long. So, like, things would start and then they'd end pretty quickly. I don't know. There wasn't a whole lot to really get invested in at first, because it was just a lot of, arcs would resolve in maybe 10 chapters, if that.
It does the thing I've talked about with Bleach. Like, it also happened in Bleach and One Piece, where the first arcs are just really short and then they get longer as it goes on. I forget Rave is kind of like, I forget exactly how much longer the arcs are later on are, but it's generally similar. So it's like, so expect bigger chunks of story as we keep going forward, and fewer shorter arcs. So yeah.
Bleach would be a good comparison because Bleach had that kind of opening stretch where it was just kind of the wacky shenanigans. And maybe I just gelled with Kubo's humor better. Maybe I just liked Kubo's art better, the characters better. I don't know what it was, but I don't know. I was okay with the opening art, like with the opening stretch of Bleach. But yeah, I've already said it. Like the first 30 chapters or so of Rave were just really dull and boring and uninteresting. I wasn't invested. I didn't know what was going on, what the point was. It's just like, here are these arcs that are happening, conflicts.
But yep, Haru fights off the demon card guys. He's talking with the old man who was previously the Rave Master. We get some backstory because okay, this is important outside, like for later, because I didn't know about this at first because it was actually in Cartoon Cypher's video Why I Love Fairy Tail, why one of the two really still likes it, and Mashima himself, like his dad died when he was really young. Mashima did not grow up not having a father, and that shows up in his work a lot. Like even in Rave, like Haru's dad is gone, and he does meet him later in this stretch of chapters, but yeah, and it's also kind of important to, like, I mean, that's a thing with shonen in general, like, like I just, as I was saying that, I remembered, shit, we're just reading Hunter x Hunter already. He's on an island. His dad is gone. No, that's not true. But, that one thing is kind of similar now I think about it. But yeah, Haru is initially, he doesn't want, it's the hero's journey. He refuses the call. It's just, but then Plu is he's gonna try and, do it anyway because he's connected to the Rave, and then Haru goes. So yeah. But Haru promises to come back and adventure, yeah. Oh yeah, then they get into a short arc where there's like a fucking dog racing thing, and Plu gets involved, of course, because he's kind of a dog. And this is when Haru meets Ellie, who's important. I don't know, she's kind of cute sometimes, I guess. Oh, fucking Christ, I'm actually reading let's talk about the translation. Because, yeah, the translation does not age well. Like, I'm looking to this antagonist in the arc, and he's like, "Welcome to my smoke, his house," and I'm like, it hurts. Like, they kept doing this kind of like, this 90s, like, radical, sick dude bro kind of shit, and it's painful. How did you think about, or what did you think about it, Mathwiz?
Okay, sorry, I kind of muted for a second because I had someone being really loud in the other room.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay.
So, yeah, what did you think about the translation?
It was... No. You're insane in the membrane, mister. There's a character is always saying, like, what the deuce? What's the haps? Like, oh, God, there are so many. And this translation, you're right, it does not age well.
Yeah, I think my favorite is like Deerhound, the one of the Blue Guardians. He was like, "Haru, are you ready to accept your destiny?" He's like,
totally.
"Yeah, totally."
Oh no.
Yeah, it was a mistake. Because, like, again, it's aimed at, I think the translation was expecting to try and grab a younger audience, even though, like, especially at the time, I think anime, well, no, there would have been Dragon Ball and Naruto, or Dragon Ball around that time, probably maybe Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh!, not quite Naruto yet, that was a couple years later. Well, actually, when was the first volume released? No, yeah, the second volume was released in 2003, so, yeah, a little bit before Naruto. So yeah, I guess there would have been a notable young fan base coming, but I don't know if how many of them. Like, cause Rave, I forgot, cause yeah, not only did I reread Rave, or am I rereading Rave now rather, but I had actually seen some of the anime, like years ago when it was airing on Toonami, because the English opening, I don't know if if I used it for the opening of this podcast or not. It's no pirate rap, okay? But it's still, like, I swear to God, I never re-listened to it until, like, I must have heard it at least once while reading Rave last time, because it's, like, I've had it stuck in my head, like, not stuck in my head for years, but, like, sometimes I'll just start thinking about it, and I'll be like, yep, there it is, stuck in my head again. So yeah, I have seen, because I remember seeing, like, the Sieg stuff and Reina with where they were trying to kill Lucy or Ellie. God damn it, I'm mixing up with the fairy tale character. We're not even the one I call her. Lucy.
No.
And I remember seeing stuff from the last arc we read, the Tower of Din, because the two clashing winds, who were the two Gales. So like I remember seeing some of that stuff in the anime English dub. But I forgot I did have some. Anyway. But yeah, this translation it's like they're trying to sound cool to appeal to the younger audiences of the time, I guess. And we are not young. We are no longer in that time.
Yeah, I wasn't. I had talked to you about this in the Discord, but I was confused. As like, is this a Mashima-ism, or is it just the translation, or is it a mix of both?
I'm pretty confident it's just a translation.
Yeah, this is the first manga we're reading for the podcast that wasn't licensed by Viz. I guess it's also the first manga that wasn't published in Weekly Shonen Jump that we're covering. It's a different shonen magazine.
That is actually you're right. I mean, it's still, same time period. It started 2 years after One Piece, so it was running at the same time as Bleach. Like, it ended earlier. That's like the biggest difference from the big three, like, as far as like magazine and such go, or aside from being in a different magazine. So is that it ended it's shorter. It's like half the length of Naruto, and Bleach, which were the other two short ones. So yeah. But no, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is because Fairy Tail's dialogue was nothing like this. It was much more normal.
See, and according to the Wikipedia page I looked up, apparently Rave was licensed by, what is it? The first 32 volumes are licensed by one company, and then the license expired before they finished. So then the last two were picked up, or the last 2 or 3 or whatever were picked up by someone else. The last 3.
I didn't know that. I'm actually curious as to how noticeable it will be when we get to our last chapter or stretch of reading. Huh. Because that's another thing. When I read the manga, the official release was not available online in its entirety. Like, this stuff I definitely remember, the early stuff. But later on, it's fan translations with really bad scan quality translation. Like, if you look at go watch my video, there's like parts where you could tell the scans are really bad. Like, I think there's one page I used where I actually had to like try and Photoshop it together, because it's like a 2-page spread where Haru's got a sword, and the sword goes across 2 pages. The scan quality is so bad that like the page break is really fucked up, and the sword is really, it's still fucked up even though I photoshopped it to try and make it look better.
Yeah.
So the current release is probably better about that part. That had actually been uploaded when I was doing the episode of the Tirade, but I didn't know about it because I already had it downloaded, the bad fan translation. So we won't have to deal with that, luckily.
Oh man, but yeah. I guess to get all the, I'm not going to be able to get all the translation goofs out of my system because they're going to keep coming up. But it gets even weirder later on because like you'll get the serious fights that happen, and that like the bantery slang stuff like goes away, and so then when it comes back during the in between stuff, it's like, oh my god, I forgot about this, and it's just like all the more jarring.
Yeah, I think the worst for me was probably Schneider, I think, with this fucking German accent, and I was just like, oh god, why? Make it stop. That was probably the worst for me. But anyway, yeah, Haru, they stop the evil guys who are exploiting people for money, like, you can't leave the town unless you pay money, so everyone's trying to be sneaky and grubby and steely, and they beat him up, and it's all good. God, I'm reading the fucking dialogue. It's a mistake. Like, I'm sending, like he beats up the dog racer guy, and he's like, I'm sending you to the pound. After calling him dog, of course, and it's just like,
See, at first I thought some of the slang was like, because they were in the hip-hop town or whatever, so I was like, okay, maybe that's what they're going for, but it just keeps coming back. It
never stops. It never stops. Oh god.
Also, one thing I forgot to mention, I think this was in like the opening chapter that I forgot to bring up earlier, but I like the opening page or whatever, where it's like, the war is over, maybe now there can finally be peace. Oh no, and it's just like framed as like a very meme thing.
I love that too. Yes, I wrote it down in my notes. Like, the war is over. Oh no! Boom! It's just like, just I guess it's timing that seems comedic even though it's not supposed to be.
Yeah,
because that's another thing is like Mashima, like he's still getting his feel for the mood of his thing yet, so it's like he does shit like that, but there's times like where he's trying, like you can see when he's like focusing or when he's managing to succeed a little bit, like even in like the first chapter, there's one particular part where he's like trying to punch the one guy with the demon card dude, and like the first part looks like Haru's like really stiff as he's like going to punch the guy, and the guy has a stupid expression because Haru just hit him in the last page. But then the spread after that, when Mashima uses shading, like it makes the art better. Like that one page, maybe he just spent more time on that page, I don't know. But that one page of him actually punching the dude looks better because it's got like the explosion and there's shading on Haru's face from the lighting. Like it looks cooler.
Well,
so it's
clearly
like
he's just not putting in the effort normally. I mean, when he tries, he can make a good pen. God, I hate people who do that.
Yeah, no, it's like, yeah. See, I'm not gonna assume I know exactly how he drew every because the
clearly
manga
it must
workload,
be laziness. You know,
right.
I mean,
yeah, the manga workload is really rough, and this is his first serialization. He has it like, see now, like modern Mashima. He's productive as fuck. Like, he's, like, I think the first 2 or 3 chapters of Eden Zero is, like, a whole volume. Like, so the first chapter being 70 pages, like, that makes sense. It's the first chapter. The second chapter was 50 pages, and I'm like, okay, what the fuck? How did you do that?
Well, I mean, that happened with Rave, too. Like, the first volume was 4 chapters. So
that
exactly. Didn't help
but,
either, trying to get into it. I was like, I need these chapter breaks. I need to breathe. And they weren't there.
Yeah, so, like, honestly, Mashima's work ethic is very insane, and, but I think...
Would you say it's insane in the membrane, yo?
Motherfucker. That was perfect. But I was gonna say... Well, because I was gonna say, because you can... there's especially a moment later where you can tell that Mashima is struggling with the weekly thing, and I think the reason for that is the Jiggle Butt Gang, who are basically the epitome of the jokes aimed at children that just make me want to die. Because like the joke is that they have big butts and they are always shaking them around, and they're also thieves. This is not the only time they will be appearing in the manga.
No, I figure not. He even said in the afterword, he's like, oh, these are characters I'd like to come back in other stories. I'm like, oh, there they are. They're going to be back.
Mm-hmm. Also, fun fact
like
go on.
You know, the jiggle butt part, that's not my type of humor either. But I don't know, some of the shenanigans they got into were funny enough. Some of them weren't. Mm-hmm. Some of them were all right.
That's, yeah, I mean, it was a bunch of goofy antics. Like, I don't know, see, for me, I've already read it before, so, like, I don't know. I mostly, for me, it was like, oh, there's actually a conflict here. Like, there's, like, 1 or 2 moments where I'm like, oh, look, themes! I like themes! Give me more of those! Cause, see, like, that's a thing I think some people might not... I think I've talked about this before, but it's like, all stories have themes. If there's a conflict... You know, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have, like, a consistent or meaningful message or any... But that, like a thematic concept is just an idea. Like, if there's a character with a sword, then, okay, it's like war, conflict, battle, like, there's a bunch of themes. Like, does the story say anything meaningful about it? Probably not. You know, so... But there was a couple, like, I with the whole arc with the gambling thing, that, you know, money, influence, power... stuff like that, like, but okay, all they do is just beat him up, you know, so, cause strength is actual power, so again, no major message, but it's like, it's not like it's not there, so yeah, and maybe there's stuff I'm missing, cause again, people on my server are liking it more than I am, and one, person might even make a video, if, depending on how the series goes from here, so yeah, But anyway, so moving on, Haru needs to fix his sword because it's broken, and he tries to find the blacksmith musica. There's more than one musica because of course there is. There's like the old blacksmith, and then there's the young blacksmith who ends up he joins the crew. He's the third Straw Hat, kind of Rave, I guess. But yeah, there's a whole thing with them. They have a backstory that they like. I don't know. It's kind of weird how it gets handled. Because it's like they kind of know about each other, but they also don't like totally address each other. I forget if I wrote anything down about that. Oh yeah, but there's also Lance, this dude who got forced Old Man Musica to make him a sword, but he's evil. He's using the sword for bad things, and that fucked Old Man Musica up. He's all drunk and stuff because he made a sword and it's being used for bad, I guess. But Haru inspires him to make a new sword. Did you have any thoughts on this arc at all, or anything?
One thing I like that Mashima does, is maybe it's one of his like goofy things, but when he'll do his like day to night transitions, and he has the little cartoon sun and moon where they're like talking to each other, and here's one where the moon is like taking a smoke break or whatever, and it's like, hey, it's time for your shift. Like, it's night.
That is pretty cute, and he's only done that in Rave, to my knowledge. But it's definitely something I've never seen, like quite before. Like, it's just a goofy little whimsical thing. I did take note of that both reading and rereading, because it's just an interesting way to transition, the scenes, or it's silly, and this is a silly manga. So yeah, but yeah, there was like one line in this arc where I think Old Man Musica mentioned like a sword has to have a strong core, or who said that? Someone did, and like Haru, he's stubborn. His core is never gonna break. Where Old Man Musica fucked up and he gave up because his core was weaker, but he got it stronger again. And Lance is just a piece of shit. He's like, he even uses like illusions because he's just a fake bitch. Like, and because he keeps like later on he's like, oh, I surrender, but then not really. Like, he reminds me of Krieg actually. In a way, brief, like some for shit like that. I don't know.
So yeah, like he lies and he uses illusions because his core is more malleable. It's weaker, I guess.
Right. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, which is honestly like that, and one later moment is like probably one of the only times I can remember of Mashima the abilities actually like mattering for like any kind of like conflict thematically like that, because Mashima usually doesn't do that, or at least thinking back to Fairy Tail, like there's only one moment I can think of off the top of my head, and maybe when I reread, because with Fairy Tail I'm honestly more invested in it because it's so deeply personal to me, because I liked it, and then I realized it was bad, and the pain, the betrayal, I've never been able to recover. So Rave doesn't have that sort of like draw with me. So it's just another thing Mashima did that's also kind of long, and it's obviously done by the same author because there's similarities. But yeah, they fight. Plu helps out somehow with the chain thing, and Haru beats them.
I did like the part before, like sometime in the build up for the conflict thing, where Ellie is like taken hostage, and she's just bored, just kind of standing there. She's like, I asked if you wanted to play Shiritori. Why are you ignoring me? And he's just like, he's pissed off, and he's like got his head on his sword, and he's like, shut up. It's great. She's good.
And yeah,
that's right. One of the things I was going to say about Ellie, that all like there were many things that made the early stretch not super interesting, and introducing a character with memory loss. Like, I get the trope. It can like, I'm not even saying it's used poorly here, but when you introduce a character that has no memory, they tend to be pretty bland, at least until they get their memory.
They don't. Yeah, because it's like they don't know how to act because they don't have their memory. But Ellie, at least, like, she's a goofball. She's a dummy. She has some kind of personality, So at least she's got that. Because, yeah, the memory loss, it's like... Because I think I've talked... And there's also brainwashing of it later in the Thunder Dancers arc, or whatever it's called. Or, I don't... Maybe I'm mixing up things, but you know who I'm talking about. And, like... So it's like, and the issue with that stuff is obviously like it sort of like muddle, like Ellie, like we don't know what her actual character is like if she has amnesia. She could be anyone, and that makes it potentially risks like removing meaning. Like what is the point of this character if she just gets overwritten later when she gets memories back? Obviously, we don't know how that's going to go yet. But there's a threat there with memory loss of like that kind of stuff. What if this characterization is just undone? We don't know how it's going to work out. And brainwashing is kind of the same thing. Like these brain controlled characters, like this character does not matter so much because it's not who that character actually is. But we'll talk about that later. So yeah, he's just like, he's using common story elements that I'm personally not a fan of because they're easy to muck up, and I don't think the brainwashing thing was done notably well. So like I said, not that it was done really poorly either, But again, we'll talk about that later.
I can't even think of what the brainwashing thing was.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's the Dark Blings. It's mentioned exactly once that they made the two guys evil, and once the Dark Blings were broken, they were not evil.
I interpreted it.
Okay.
Because I did want to bring that up.
Okay, well, then we'll talk about it later. Well, I guess you could get out of your way now before you forget.
Well, I was going to say, it happens in this stretch with this guy is where it's brought up. And, like, I kind of... Cause I forget what the exact quote was. I don't have it. No, wait, yes, I do have it.
I forgot something.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was the Darkbring. The Darkbring corrupts whoever it touches. So, I don't know. With this guy in particular, for him to be the one that...
Lance or the Thunder guy?
Lance.
Lance is a sword guy. Illusion sword guy.
Oh, wait, do they... Oh, okay, that's right. They don't bring up the quote until... Thunder guy. Okay, but with okay, so it wasn't brought up with Lance. Never mind. But for it to happen like right after Lance, who before he even got the Darkbring, murdered a guy's family who like gave him a sword. So like
he was always kind of a piece of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's fine with like being applied for future stuff because that kind of comes back later, sort of. Like I could see how that applies to the main guy who just. Who we'll cover at the end of the podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, I feel like I don't want to like make judgments because I don't know, maybe I'm assuming things of Mashima that I don't know, but it didn't seem like he fully had a grasp of what he was trying to do early on. This seems like one example where like here's a guy who murdered an entire family, but it was the Darkbring that made him more evil than murdering people. I don't know.
Because, that's my thing with it. Because, like, with the maybe I'm misremembering something from later, but I'm pretty sure the Thunder guy and the girl are the only characters in the entire manga who are said to have been corrupted by the Darkbling and made, like, eviler, or at least evil to the point where they were good before. Maybe there's some other characters where you can interpret with that. Because, like, obviously, you know, Shuda, he got a whole arc, and he showed up in the last arc for, like, a page. He looked different, so I'm not... I actually... I didn't know when I saw him, I was just, like, going through, like, when I first read the series, because I didn't recognize him as the Shuda until rereading it, I'm like, oh, that's Shuda. Because he's still in late... He comes back after this stretch of chapters, which is not a spoiler, because it's like, we already saw him in this stretch of chapters again, after he, quote-unquote, died. Because that's a Mashima-ism. Characters die, but not really. That said, Rave does have his highest body count, so throwing that out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I saw him come back, I pretty immediately recognized like, oh hey, that's Shuda, isn't it?
Okay, that's good. I was past me was just retarded. Gotcha. It's good to know. Like I said, I missed some. I'm trying to remember one of the things that I just like. Oh, that's the thing I missed. The Empire. They mention it like twice this stretch of chapters. Ugh, why couldn't I say that? But later on, they introduced them more like. Strongly, and I legit thought it came out of nowhere. I'm like, wow, this would have been better to mention in the previous, like, 10 volumes. But it was, like, twice. And then another thing is, Musica's mentioned that he's looking for a ship, or something like that. Or he's looking for something. That comes up later. Like, and all this stuff I assumed came out of nowhere because it's like, oh, it's Mashima's first work. He's just writing off the seat of his pants. He doesn't plan anything. Like, because I was looking for that, that's what I saw. Even though, like, rereading it, it's like, yeah, he's planned more shit than I fucking... And there's one thing in particular that's really weird. I'm gonna do my best not to allude to it. Because it's a pretty big twist, or reveal, or it's a pretty major thing that he's already foreshadowed. And, but even knowing that, like, how, an aspect of how he handled it is really weird. So yeah, that'll come up later. But yeah, I forget what we were talking about.
I wonder, was it the promise between Haru and Ellie? No, I don't need an answer to that.
Right, well, that was the thing that happened in this stretch of chapters. Because, like, he wants to help her with their memories. So yeah, I mean, which is also kind of weird, like, the experiment thing, but maybe she wasn't. I think there was some of that, too, with, Sieg talking about it with after the fact. So yeah, I don't know, or maybe, I don't know, I forget. It's all weird. But anyway, so yeah, they finish Lance. They talk with Haru talks with the Musicas after the fact because he's and then Musica isn't part of one of the Musicas, but then he is. He just put it on the wrong arm. or he has it on the other arm that he should.
I mean, there has been this stretch of chapters did, I guess, introduce sort of the core of Haru's personality, that he doesn't want peace if it comes with a sacrifice. And so when the old guy is trying to sacrifice himself with Lance, and Haru is just like, no, I'm not going to kill you, and he just like jumps over his back and destroys the dark bring, whatever the heck it's called.
I got her saying it. I win. Now you're saying bling too, but yeah, no, that I do like that aspect of his character where he doesn't want to sacrifice anything, and that's an interesting like stance is even if it's peace, like if it's not a worthwhile peace if someone had to die for it. So yeah, I forget exactly how that's challenged in later arcs, aside from one moment that frustrated me that I don't know if it will still frustrate me. But yeah, the younger Musica does not. He's like, I'm not part of this family, but no, he is, and he just doesn't want to. He doesn't want to deal with that. I guess he doesn't want to deal with his past right now. He's just kind of doing his own thing, got his own shit to do, I suppose. And then they move on, and we find the first major plot hole. So there's like a whole goofy chapter where Plu is like shriveled up, and it turns out it was just the water that did that. But wait a minute, in chapter 1, Haru fishes Plu out of the ocean, and he's not waterlogged at all. Mashima.
Oh no, 0 out of 10. Mashima.
I just thought about that, and I'm like, wait a minute. It's funny that that's the plot hole I noticed.
I don't know, that chapter felt kind of weird in general, because like they were all of a sudden like mad at each other. They were having like the lovers quarrel. I don't know where that came from.
Ellie was, I mean, like she was just being like super obnoxious and shit, and then like, man, why is Haru being a jerk? And I'm like, Haru's being really? I'm not sure if that's how I see it.
I don't know. I feel like he was being kind of dumb too. Like maybe. I feel like they're both acting kind of weird.
Yeah, they are both dumb.
I mean, I think when I was first reading it, I think I misunderstood Ellie's character a bit, because I don't know, it hadn't clicked with me immediately that like, oh, she is kind of dumb, like that's just I don't know, she will do weird things and silly things. I don't know.
Yeah, see, and I personally have noticed like I sometimes like dumb characters in general, like I mean Luffy, but also I don't know, maybe I noticed it with female characters in particular because I don't know, maybe they're not as dumb common, like again, especially thinking of a One Piece, it's like or hell, even like Naruto and Bleach, like looking at the big three, the women are the smarter like straight men to the idiot guys usually, or like Rukia to, I mean Rukia's goofy too, so Bleach is probably the less strong example, but like Sakura to Naruto or Nami to everyone. So here you have Ellie being the dumber one, so that's nice. And I'm thinking of Konosuba too, because Aqua's a big dumb idiot, and she's great. I don't know if you've seen Konosuba, but
yes, I have. I've seen the two seasons.
Yes. So yeah. Also, we get introduced to Griff, who is like an exposition machine and a main character.
Yeah,
like,
I was surprised Griff stuck around. I was like, okay, he's their escort for this arc, and then he'll be gone. And then he just sticks around. And the horse does too, I think.
I don't know. I forget about the horse, but Griff
comes and goes.
He's a main character now.
I don't get it. And I like how Mashima even said in, again, like one of the afterwards, he's like, oh, I was gonna give Griff a fight with this one pervert guy, but I didn't do that. That got scrapped. I was like, oh my god, he was gonna be like a character.
Yep.
With his own conflicts and everything. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe that would have been more interesting than having him stick around and do like literally nothing.
No, that's not true. He drops exposition Mathwiz. He's incredibly important. He's integral. I don't know.
All right. I guess one thing I was going to talk about with Ellie that I just kind of forgot about, that maybe also partially contributed to my like misunderstanding of her character is, and again, I kind of had this with Haru's sister at first too, because when he was so obsessed about like, oh, my sister taught me this, and when she like beat him up in the first chapter or whatever, I was like, oh, is she like a tougher older sister character? That was not the case at all, which is fine. And then like with Ellie again, like when she first showed up, she's like, oh, she's dangerous. When she gets mad, she blows things up. And then she didn't do a whole lot of that for most of the stretch of chapters. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, see, okay, this is definitely Mashima-ism, where he introduces a girl as like a tough fighter, and then they don't do anything. Because yeah, Ellie doesn't she's got to get moments later that I'm not thinking of, but overall, it's the dudes who do all the heavy lifting when it comes to the fighting.
She did get a couple moments, not a lot, but she got some. She got to do some stuff, and like I don't even think that a character like even in an action manga that a character necessarily needs like
no, of course, yeah, like, I hate that too. But
I feel like their role in the action is kind of important with it being an action heavy manga. Which is kind of why, like in One Piece, I would say, like, if Nami and Robin aren't getting fights, they are main characters, so usually, like, main characters get fights. So it can be a little weird.
Yeah.
But, like, if there are other ways to integrate characters, whether male, female, whatever, that don't involve fights, but, like, still keeping them relevant, like, it's
and at
fine.
least Ellie's, like, majorly plot important, so she's got that going for her, So, we're compared to Sakura, who, she has her moments, but, she obviously falls to the wayside, even though she's supposed to be like the equal to Naruto and Sasuke.
Yeah, she doesn't really get a whole lot to do in terms of fights or just general plot things.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. But anyway, so moving on to the Thunder arc, there's the rain. It's always been raining, and it's sad, and the kid's sad. Got a kind of cycle of hatred thing, or he's like mad because everything sucks. Oh yeah, and Ellie has a fear of thunder because she got attacked by some guy who made her fear thunder, and it's implied that it might be this guy.
Yeah, that was a somewhat interesting bait and switch, like the way it was set up, and maybe I'm just conditioned by One Piece now that like, oh, things are gonna be, I don't know, like that has curbed my expectations. But when she like ran off to do her own thing, I'm like, cool, here's gonna be the arc where we learn about Ellie. And it's going to be super serious, and we have this rain plot, and it's going to be... And instead it was just, like, goofy hijinks, and it's like, wrong guy. So it was just
serious for, like one flashback of her getting, like, tortured to near death by a mysterious lightning dude with an eye tattoo who's totally not Mashima's favorite character that he's ever written or anything. Yeah, and that part's serious, but then when it actually does get to the fighting, it's goofy again.
I mean, it was fine. I think it was fine. Like, I can't imagine this being a more serious conflict, but it was, like I said, it was an interesting bait and switch.
Yeah, there's definitely more serious stuff, like, especially later on even this stretch of chapters. But, for the start especially, it's generally goofy. So, but yeah, we get into this dude. He's, Go. I literally forgot his name. I don't remember names for all these villains. There's so many characters. And I'm not as invested, so I'm not going to remember everyone, obviously.
Yeah, I feel, like, not even just with the supporting characters or the villains who show up, like, even with, like, the main characters, like, we get introduced to, I've already forgotten his name, but the old dude who was, like, the first Rave Master.
Shiba.
Yeah.
Most of them are named after dogs, I think, because Shiba Inu is a type of dog, that a deerhound, Spaniel was one of them, I think. So they're all like dogs, and of course, except for the one who's like an eagle. I think maybe I don't know. Maybe she's a dog too. I don't fucking know. But yeah, Shiva is the first Rave Master, and Haru's the second. Yes.
Yeah, because we got introduced to him, and then he was around for about 5 chapters, and then got left behind. And then like we were introduced to Musica, and he was there for the arc. Didn't do a whole lot. And then he disappeared, and then came back later and became a main character. Again, it's just I'm a little thrown off by the structure. Speaking of structure, though, one thing I do think is kind of, I don't know if it's good or bad, cool or not. But like I mean, I think it's kind of interesting how sometimes like the chapters just bleed into each other. Like even the chapter cover will be like progressing the action. So sometimes like it would just bleed into another chapter, and I'm like, whoa, where's the transition there? Where like Shonen Jump particular, like each chapter has to end on a cliffhanger. It's got to hook them for next time. Whereas that wasn't really happening with Rave Master. I was like, oh, the chapter ended. There was no big hook. Okay, and then it was
that's actually a good observation because or go on. finish your thought?
Well, yeah, sometimes the chapter cover, instead of being like an illustration, it's just like a cool drawing. It would be like an actual event that, like, the scene is moving through the cover chapter into the next, or not the cover page is what I mean, into the next chapter.
Yes. Like, yeah, I'm looking at one of the ones I'm assuming you're talking about, where the Rosa, she's like forcing Haru to dance, and Ellie's like, she's not being affected for some reason, and she's like, but the cover page, the chapter just ends where, and then like you said, there's no real chapter ending bit, and then it's the cover page of the next chapter is Ellie just saying, I'm not fighting, and then Rosa gets mad and pulls out a knife / gun, knives. Okay, I wasn't sure. It looks like, it's got maybe it is a gun. I don't know.
But yeah, like in the volumes, it's interesting because it just flows. I don't know how that would be reading weekly. But that's not, I guess, important for us because we're not reading weekly.
Here's how it works weekly, because I've seen these in the weekly releases for Fairy Tail. There's usually the like chapter page will have a big like narration block of text that will be explaining what's going on. So if you're not caught up, you can just reread that. Like, fan translations would just cut it out and not cut out the text and just leave the empty box, because they expect, I guess they don't want to translate it, and they expect everyone to be following on.
So wait, there's just a page with an empty box?
No. There's like a panel with a narration box that has, and it's not even the whole panel. Like, there's just a narration box in that panel that has a quick summary of what's going on. So these chapters, like this cover page I'm looking at, probably had a box like that. Or if it didn't, maybe like they added that box later. Mashima had they had him add it later because people were getting confused because they'd go into this chapter and what the fuck's going on, So just speculating on how it might have been based on what I know, because yeah, it's funny that you bring up the chapter ending things, because we just read One Piece, specifically the arc that had the bad end musical, which was probably One Piece's most infamous chapter ending. Like, hey, look, we gotta be super impactful because it was a Kishimoto fake out, as we've kind of seen. But yeah, this because it's not Jump, because it's not as competitive in regards to getting the chapter ratings and getting people invested in the series and voting. I mean, not to say like series and other magazines do get canceled when they don't do well. I don't particularly know how they rate them, because not as many magazines are as studied as Jump. And this is what magazine is it? I'm terrible with
remembering I believe it was just Weekly Shounen Magazine.
Weekly Shounen Magazine, yes. Okay. So yeah, that it's and yeah, it is different. So yeah, that is a good observation. Especially coming off of One Piece, like I said. So yeah. But yeah, there's some fighting. Ellie kind of does some things. She's I forget. Yeah, you're right. She does do some things. She's cool.
Yeah, this one was again like kind of structured weird. Like who would seemingly be the main boss gets like taken out before the fighting even begins, and Haru's distracted, so it's like, oh, okay, Ellie gets to fight this girl, and it's like, okay, right, I guess that's the end of the conflict. Oh no, wait, the guy's back up, and okay, now we're gonna do the boss fight. Okay,
right, yeah. So that's kind of neat, because it does the same kind of like the secondary characters beat the secondary antagonists first, and then the main character beats the main antagonist. So it kind of does that. Yeah, it's just like unexpected. Here's what it's doing. Where One Piece would knock Luffy out of the fighting, Mashima knocked his villain out of the fighting. That's I hadn't thought about it like that. Because yeah, that's normal. It's inversed from what you might see in One Piece, I suppose. But probably I guess that's because it's a more comedic antagonist. He's able to like undercut him by making him look weaker, but still have him like get back up and be this like fighting threat thing, like not a major threat. Like I think Lance was probably like Lance wasn't undercut. He was supposed to be this more imposing threat, whereas Go's kind of a doofus. So even though that's interesting. How differently they're presented. So yeah.
I'm not sure what the theme for this arc was, like what the idea was, because the villain girl was like something about relying on men or whatever. Like she said a thing to Ellie,
and then yeah, but then they kind of both like it just ends up being the men fighting again. And earlier there was like, oh, does Mashima hate capitalism because it's like, oh, their movie production is causing trouble for the locals or something. And then like there's a kid who's like, yeah, it's kind of messy, I guess. Like
Comrade
there's
Mashima.
Some more there are some more cohesive ideas a bit later, I would say. There's at least one that I thought was kind of interesting.
I don't know, The resolution to I mean, like, the Ellie fight, I guess, was kind of goofy, so maybe it wasn't supposed to be taken seriously. But the way it just kind of ends with, like, the girl falling down, and then she's like, "Oh no, I can't do anything now. My powers are going to attack me. Help!"
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that was weird. You're right. I didn't think about that. And then, all right, because I thought she got knocked out by the other guy. Go.
No, like she had her snake, whatever the heck it was called, her weapon thing, and she could like manipulate it.
Oh, that's right. And yeah, Ellie saved her. That's right. You're right. Okay, that now I remember. Yeah, it's yeah, because Ellie saved her, and it was good. Yeah, but that was kind of a weird moment. Yeah, the Dark Blings are really inconsistent, weird in this arc for some reason. Because yeah, I think that was a Dark Bling, but yeah, they don't normally do this. And then of course it turns out they were actually decent people. They were just corrupted by the Dark Blings, because that happens sometime, like this exact one time and never again. And yeah, I do think that's like it kind of undercuts any conflict that might have been here. Like, again, it was kind of messy in the first place. I mean, I don't know, if someone has like a more consistent reading, please tell me how we're wrong. I would love that, because it's kind of hard to focus when you're bored out of your skull, and you do need to focus and like learn, pay attention to the details to come up with a good reading. And Mashima's very busy story that I'm not invested in makes it harder for me to do that. And I think that's a shame, because, if there's something notable here that's interesting, fuck it. Why not talk about it? Even if it's probably not going to change my opinion of the manga, but hey, it's there. Give it the credit where it's due. So yeah, but it turns out they were basically brainwashed, mind controlled, whatever. And yeah, these aren't the real characters you were watching these last couple chapters. They're just, they're good now. You don't have to think about it. And they're like, okay. Whatever.
Yeah, I had sent you a message that I was like, so like there was so much happening and yet so little happening, I think was
right.
How I described it. Like, yeah. I don't know, like I wasn't sure how it all connected. So that's what I meant by like so little happening. But like there is, because again, like the arcs wrap up very quickly, like 10 chapters at most for a bunch of these, until like the stuff with Shuda happens, and then we start to get into the bigger arcs, which even then aren't like super long, but there's a little more substance to dig into, a little more meat to digest. Yeah. I don't know.
We shall see. Because yeah, after that it goes into they were following. Oh no, we get a bit of a moment where before they leave, they get a photograph of the actual Thunder guy with the eye tattoo, and so here this part bugs me a little bit, because so here was what happens. They're saying like, oh yeah, we're looking for the Thunder guy who attacked Ellie and gave her like serious trauma regarding Thunder. And then he's like, oh, is this the guy you're looking for? And it is. And Haru says, oh yeah, he looks cool. The guy who tortured Ellie looks cool. That's your first reaction. Okay.
Did he know at that point that she had been tortured
Maybe not.
by him?
Maybe not. But it's like, because they were looking for... see, I don't know how much he knew. That's my question. I just always thought that... And again, just the exact reaction of like, oh, this character, he looks cool, because... As I've said before, like, he's Mashima's favorite character. He's in almost everything Mashima's done. And so, like, he's in Eden Zero already. He's just called Justice instead of Sieg. Like, I actually didn't believe it, because he normally doesn't look like that. But when he activates his power, his hair turns blue and he gets an eye tattoo. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, he literally has a to become Sieg button.
Oh no!
In Eden Zero. So I haven't read that far. I was told about it. And of course, Fairy Tail has Jalal, who he's a guy. We'll talk about Jalal. Oh God, I can't wait for Fairy Tail, but I also can wait. Please, oh God, I want. Anyway. So yeah, we learn a bit about him, and everything's good, and they go on to the mountain.
I did like the one little gag where I guess the rain was just made by this like machine, and it's like, there were 6 buttons here. 5 of them will self-destruct the machine. 1 of them will turn it off, and they're just like, how do we do this? And then Plu just hits the button, and it's like, oh, you turned it off. Good job.
Yeah, that was okay. Yeah, I forgot about that. That was good. It's 'cause it's just so stupid, but it's like whatever. It's goofy. It's fine.
I already don't remember, but how many power-ups has Haru had by this point? Because he gets the sword made in the Lance arc, and then like he can make it explode, and then like he gets other progressive power-ups.
Yeah, he was able to do that in the first arc. In the first arc, he got there's like the regular sword form and the second sword form. Because in this stretch of chapters, he gets 2 or 3. He gets a few more. Because I'm just trying to remember when. Because he gets Sulfarion, which is like a speed. He goes fast. There's he gets the rune one, which cuts things that can't be cut. That with the Ellie stuff. I'm trying to remember. Did he use something against Lance that I'm forgetting about? Because I don't think he got one with the. No, he didn't. Or no. Maybe he did.
No, shit. Lance. I think he only had the explosion one, and then he just like hit him with normal sword or whatever.
Yeah. So okay, and then I don't think he got anything in the Thunder guys. With the Thunder dudes. Go.
But yeah, like it's tougher to remember them because I'm not sure what like the character moment was that goes with the power up if there was one. Like sometimes there are. I feel like that I'm not quite getting what it is, but then some of them not so much.
See, I'm pretty sure I wrote something down if I did notice something, because I think I did for at least 1 or 2 of them, but it's, yeah.
No, yeah, like, I get the feeling that, like, there's something there, and I'm just not entirely sure what the idea is.
Like, yeah, because like I said, it's hard to think about that kind of shit when you're just not invested at all. So, yeah. So, moving on, they go to the mountain, they run into a bear who's actually a blue guardian who knew Shiva, Deerhound. And there's like a whole big mystery because they're infiltrating, and oh no, there's an assassin who's after them, and it's implied that it's this mysterious guy with in the outfit who's after them. But no, it's actually, and then they made a cool doctor guy, but no, the doctor's actually the evil assassin. And the guy who with a terrible fucking German accent, because that means hero in like storytelling language, because the Germans are always the good guys. That's not true. But yeah, the guy who was following him turns out to be Musica.
I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, like again, I thought it was weird that he left in the first plays, because I don't know. Again, like the way the cast is originally introduced and then kind of the way it takes shape is a little weird. But I was able to predict that this was the guy. Like I saw the character design and I'm like, hey, is that? It's probably not. It's probably someone else. But no, it was him. Of course, when he shows up, we get and this assassin guy was sent to kill you, and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for this meddling kid. Thanks, Mr. Scooby-Doo. Thanks.
See, it's perfect because Scooby-Doo villains are always obvious, and that guy was out. No, I don't know. I'm sure some Scooby-Doo things are good. I just haven't touched it in years. Anyway,
I was a little confused though when they were like the poison flowers, and like a guy is there and like sets things on fire, and then they wake up and they're with the guy who's gonna murder him. So like I don't know.
That's a good point.
Did the plan change? Did Musica try to kill them with the fire, or was he like trying to? It was never explained, so I don't know.
Actually, because
I mean, like there was a part where the assassin guy had said, "Oh, I was instructed to watch you for a bit and like figure you out or something." So I was like, was the original plan like kill them? And it's like, no, wait, actually get to know them, and then did he have to like go back on? I don't know. I'm confused.
Yeah. See, looking ahead at like after Schneider runs into them, we get a scene of Shuda where he's being told that the assassin has made contact. So I'm assuming that his orders were to just like wait until he got the order to actually kill them. I don't know why they're making a plan to go in such a slow like direction, but okay, yeah, they guess they wanted to like find out where they were and what they were doing for. I don't fucking know that. I'm just making shit up now.
But also, Musica got a haircut, and Ellie says it looks smashing. What a smashing haircut, you know. Dude.
See, now it's not just like what year it is, but what like region are you That's like a British thing from my knowledge of English that dated, I don't know, fucking 20-year-old English, I don't know. Or
there were
15,
even some expressions that like I wasn't entirely sure what they meant, like I could infer. But some of,
do you have an
like,
example?
Some of them I get, some of them I don't. There's like the one guy, Musica, when they end up at his hometown later and he sees a place and he's like, oh, I remember this dive. I'm like, what the fuck? What is a dive? So I had to like look it up on Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, no, see, I knew that one, but I get it, because you're a bit younger than me, so...
I feel like people who are, like, even younger than me, like, I had said to you, like, I feel like, or maybe I said it in my Discord, not to you.
No, you said it to me, it to me.
Yeah, like, someone half my age, would they know what, like, would they know what half these things are? Would they understand?
Yeah.
Like, I do understand some of the old slangy language. Hey, Music, I thought you said this place was supposed to be Dullsville. It's jammin'.
Though I just realized
you've been acting wiggy all day. Okay,
Mathwiz is gonna be full of these. You need to save these and like use them over the rest of your life, over the course, or at least over the course of the Nen Show. Like we'll just be reading fucking Hunter x Hunter, and you'll just like bring up a fucking rave-ism, and they'll be like, "No, God, why?"
It'll be the loopy fist of the One Piece. It'll be the callback of callbacks,
or of Naruto. Yeah. You said One Piece.
Well, no. I said because I brought it back in the One Piece.
Oh, now I see how you mean. Gotcha. Anyway, that's true. I think there's the one like if I don't know if you know about the Chef Guy Fieri or maybe I'm mispronouncing it, but it's like he's got the show Diners Dives. Dive is in the title of his, so yeah. So it's not that dated.
I had never heard of it.
So, okay, I took me a while. I've never seen more than like bits that my parents were watching, so it didn't come to mind until you mentioned it. So you were talking about that word, so yeah. But anyway, yeah, Musica saves him. He's just like, hey, what's going on? Thought I'd join you. Well, because it's more like he wanted the rave on his own. I forget why. Because I'm like just looking through, and he's like, I'm going to get it. And he's almost fights Haru, but Ellie stops them. And she takes over leadership because they're too stupid.
That was cute. That was good. Also, why did they just start fight? Why were they gonna fight? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's what I don't. Because Musica wants the rave too for literally no reason that I understand. Like he just says that he wants it, and you could take it from me if you like. He just gets antagonistic. I guess so Ellie can stop them. It's just it's kind of dumb because I don't like. Why would he want the rave?
Well, actually, no, it had been hinted at, I guess, already. Something. But like, Musica had some other ambition. I don't think he knew that the rave connected to that, because when it comes up later, there's like we've all got different ambitions, so we might have to go our separate ways. But it's like, actually, they all connect. And it didn't seem like he realized that, so he wouldn't have known at this point.
Yeah, I think it's just like him forcing it a little bit so he can have Ellie take charge. Because Ellie take charging was good. It's just like the getting there was. What are you doing,
remember the time in One Piece when Zoro got to fight Luffy? That was cool. What if we did that here? I'm kidding. These are probably publishing around the same time. That probably hadn't happened yet.
And even if it did, like, that's such a common thing. Like, superhero stuff especially likes to do, like, misunderstandings to have the because how else are you going to get Batman and Superman to fight, you know? Like, they're not going to do it naturally because they're both heroes. So, yeah. Just as an example. But, so anyway, they're going through the place, and they run into Deerhound again. And he drops some exposition on him. You know, he was in the group with Shiba. They took care of Rave 50 years ago, and now he's like a spirit. And this is kind of where you get like the whole thematic thing of this arc, because it there's the whole graveyard with all the swords of all the people who failed they died trying to save the world, and Haru, so that sort of affects him a bit. And it's also like brought up connection with like Shiba. He wandered 50 years trying to find the Rave after he lost it. And I think, someone calls Shiva failure.
Yeah, that was Haru. And then the bear guy is like, oh, you're saying that everything he did was worthless? Right,
and I think it comes up with his dad, too, because, like, Shuda knew his dad. And so, like, that's kind of the whole part of the conflict is Haru growing up a bit and recognizing that, not everyone is going to be successful just because they try. and learning to respect that, effort in other people, even if they fail. Because at first he was like, oh yeah, Shiva, he's just, but now, yeah. So he grew up a little bit, because that's when he uses his, that's when he gets the speed sword, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a character moment. I don't know how it applies to going fast, which is something, like I like to see it when the powers match the actual moment. So, but at least he got his power because of a moment, instead of just getting it like because the story needed him to,
Oh yeah,
so, yeah,
and he is
I'll take what I can get.
He's also gifted with, I think it was the Rave of Knowledge. And
yes,
the bear
which
tells
allows
him
him to know. Yes.
you'll already be able to use the other forms. When the need arises, even if you don't know,
Are we going back to Naruto's catchphrase again?
Datebayo.
Yes, or rather, how it was localized. Anyway, so yeah,
believe it.
But yeah, the rave. Yes, but yeah, the rave allows him to know what his swords do as soon as he gets them. And then here's we get the fucking moment where it's like, will you swear to keep fighting until peace has returned to this world? Totally! It's like, god damn it. God damn it. Anyway, Deerhound vanishes. Shuda comes in. He's being a big bad dude. And yeah, here's like, well, Shuda's talking about how like, they were weak, and here's his ideology, don't throw away weakness, hide them, and so, which of course leads into the fight, I'd say, cause I do kind of like how the fight resolves, because, Haru, he beats Shuda, he reveals Shuda as a failure, and so he's hanging off the ledge and he cuts off his arm, like, he chooses to hide his failure by dying, basically, by cutting himself off.
Oh.
Like, he's not willing to give himself a chance to try again because he rejects failure. So yeah.
But then
but obviously lived,
so now he's got to try.
Yeah, he lived, so now...
Yeah, I was originally disappointed. Like, I wasn't entirely sure if he was going to stay dead, but I was like, oh, maybe he'll, like, join the main cast. But no, then he cut his arm off and fell off the ledge, and I was like, oh, he's not going to kill him off. I thought there was going to be more to this character. I thought there was going to be, like a cool progression. And, he does come back later, so there probably will be. So I'm excited for that. This was around the time when I started to kind of get invested a little bit. Like, things were starting to get interesting.
And yeah, this was probably my favorite, like, little realization of the reading, where it, like, oh, look, because it wasn't, like, he didn't, like, literally say, like, oh, I'm cutting off my arm because I gotta cut off my foot. Like, no, he's not saying anything cheesy like that. He's just doing it, and it's up to the audience to infer that. Like, and maybe Mashima did it on accident. I don't, like, I've talked about intent before. It doesn't matter, because I hate how people just, like, try to, like, look down and undermine the authors and just say, I saw one, edited GIF lately where it's like there's someone like leaves the context is like, oh, someone leaves a cool post on our anime, and then a commenter comes along and they're like, oh, that's a cool idea. I don't think the author intended for that though, and it's just like, fuck, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. Like, I actually remember you talked about it on hallway chats with Explanation Point and Anime Matt. I remember because you had an observation about Explanation Point's YouTuber video, like you were talking about the one with Pedantic, and you were talking about how, like, what you got out of it, and Explanation Point even said it wasn't necessarily intentional, but it was still interesting, the things you got out of it, and, as I've said before, like, Mashima, like, started writing manga because he'd read other manga, so as derivative as it might be, like, he knows storytelling from having read stories, so, like, don't underestimate the subconscious's ability to tell a story, Like, that's kind of my point, my response to intent, and this is also coming from me as a writer, because I have written things, and I have looked back on my own writings and seen aspects of myself or themes or stuff that I did not plan, that just emerged naturally, because, again, I knew stories, even though I didn't know how to explain them, I still wrote them, was it necessarily great? I don't think most of my stuff is readable, but it's still there, So yeah, that's just kind of
I do think there are biases and messages that will kind of seep in there regardless of intent, which again is like what That's what the Nen Show is about. That's why we're reading Rave and why we're going to read Fairy Tail, because, you know, no matter what public opinion of them are. I mean, we read Bleach, and everyone said, like, oh, Bleach is bad. You liked Bleach. I found some interesting things in Bleach. So, like,
Right.
You know, there are things to find here. You know, it doesn't mean that the stories necessarily have to be good. Don't have to like them, but, you know, there are ideas involved.
Yeah, and it's because that, and the thing is, it's like, you know, as a reader, I think you need to be open to multiple, like, ways of, like, how stories are told, and just, you know, trying to find, but as a writer, like, I think it's fair to, like, look at how you don't like things in a thing, and then, you know, take inspiration from that, like, do it better if you think it's not being done well. Just, like, if you're doing that, if you are legitimately interested in writing, well, A, actually write things, don't just bitch about stories online, and B is, like, recognize that, like, you're ultimately putting your own preferences on the work. Like, just because you don't like how it's done doesn't mean there isn't meaning to how it's being done, you know? And again, there's always room for someone else to have a more interesting or more thoughtful reading than, like, you know, like, again, like, if there's some cool comments with some cool observations, like, please give them to me. You know, I don't care if it's, like, yeah, it's Mashima, I don't like his work, but I'll still hear it. You know, I've got a personal investment now. You know, it happened, so I'll take it.
Don't bitch about stories online. This coming from two people talking on a podcast, two anime YouTubers who.
True.
When are we gonna co-write our own manga, Craftsdwarf?
Hey, I guess it's more that, like, I don't like it when it's at the expense of the author, because there's so many times there's just a sentiment like, oh, the person criticizing it, they're the ones who see, they can do the story better than the author. Then my question is, like, okay, what are you writing that's so interesting that I'm not, like, because chances are they haven't written anything. And in general, like, people just not understanding, like, the difference between writing and reading is something I might do a video on, or at least tangentially related. Like, I might bring it up in a video, we'll see. But yeah,
no, yeah, I do, like, get where you're coming from. I'm just kind of throwing the expected retort.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to, like, you know, mention it. Like, if I don't like it, I'm saying, like, I personally don't like the humor is a perfect example, because it's like, no joke is funny to everyone. That's just, like, inevitable. So you need to be able to recognize, like, someone will find this funny. Like, yeah, there's some moments that are, like, cute and amusing, and there's some that just make me pain. Like, okay. Like I love Super Sentai, you know, but it's aimed at kids. And, like, the last episode of the new Super Sentai series, it had, like, a fart joke, and I just, like, died inside a little bit. I'm not gonna begrudge the series for that, even though I don't like it, you know, again. So same thing I said with Rave and One Piece. So it's just, it's gonna be something I'm gonna run into the more I engage in children's media. Like, I gotta make a concession for that. Kids have a different sense of humor than me. So anyway, oh, and I guess there was more fighting this arc. I did not get as much out of it as I did from the Haru-Shuda conflict, because, like, Shuda actually had, like, an ideology and a meaningful conflict with the growth Haru literally just had. Music had just kind of beat up everyone else.
Yeah.
So
I did
it
think
looked cool.
There was an interesting moment for two reasons. One of them, just the dialogue here. Musica, can you school both of them? Like a headmaster during detention. Hear that, boys? Class is in session.
The fucking one-liners and like banter is just so cheesy. It's almost like the way you said it, like, made me go like, yeah, that's I don't mind that one. That was perfectly fine.
Yeah,
but it's so it's not really, like, better than the earlier ones, but somehow I liked it better. I don't know.
No, yeah. So there was that, but then also Haru just being like, "Hey, Musica, can you school both of them?" Like, Ellie's there, but I guess she, you know, whatever.
Yeah, they because Griff and Plu were kind of doing stuff, but then they didn't. But yeah, so the fighting finishes. Shuda gives up and cuts off his arm, and the thing is about to self-destruct. And they manage. They're safe. They get out, and it's cool.
There was a part in, I don't remember what volume we're on at this point, but there was an end of volume blurb where Mashima was talking about just stuff. And there's a particular quote in here where he said, like, oh, yeah, he talks about how, like, oh, it's been a year since Rave started. I've never worked on the same job for more than a year before. He mentions, like, oh, in other words, I lose interest very quickly. And I would, you know, the cynical part of me is like, is that why the arcs finished so quickly? Why we were just bouncing between ideas? But, I mean...
That's now that you mention it, it's a good point. Maybe. Though it's and in that regard, it's actually kind of interesting to see how he's sort of like, doing a series like he because Fairy Tail is 60 plus volumes and it's got some long arcs in there, so it's like you could see, I guess, a moment of like personal growth in him where he's like more able to stick. Because honestly, like as far as like arc pacing goes, I would say I prefer Fairy Tail just because it's more balanced with like how long each arc is. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Fairy Tail still, and maybe I don't know, we'll see. But it's like, because this early Rave stuff is very just jumpy. It goes and and then it goes back and forth, and then I don't. In some ways, it gets a little better, but there's one arc in particular I want to reread though.
I mean, it is an interesting change of pace coming off of One Piece, where like sometimes like One Piece had a very clear formula and. There were moments like in Dressrosa where it's like, okay, we're just waiting for the big fight to happen at the end. And like some of the stuff wasn't like there's a lot at play, a lot getting jumbled around, and not everybody can juggle that. So it is nice to kind of have a bit of a breather here with Rave where the arcs are nice and short. I don't know if I'd say succinct, that there's like a lot being said in there. Maybe there is. Maybe I'm just being dumb and not seeing it. But
always be open to the possibility of yourself being dumb. That's just good life advice. But anyway, so yeah, of course, right after we get one of the member. So Oration 6. The translation sometimes calls them Oration 6. That's wrong. It's supposed to be this and I know it's wrong because in Fairy Tail there's a group called the Oration 6, and in Eden Zero, there's a group called the Oration 6. So it's like, it's another one of his things that he just keeps using. So yeah, expect to be introduced, because we get introduced to, like, Shuda's defeated, and they're like, oh yeah, he was the weakest of the Oration 6, though. We're stronger. We're going to actually be a threat when we become relevant. The Shounen thing, because of course, right? We gotta keep up the tension, because we get introduced to Reina, who's a girl, and then Jigan, who has dragons, and he's also got an eye tattoo, but it's a different looking one.
My Jigan eye. That's a Yu Yu Hakusho reference, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I don't even think it's not. I'm not even saying that like Mashima is referencing Yu Yu Hakusho. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just making a funny.
Anyway, and also we have Sieg Hart, who is not one of the Oration 6. He's even said to be weaker. But he is like of a notable position in the group anyway. And we also get a glimpse of a King, the leader, who we see more of later. And they're sort of talking about the recent events with the Rave Master coming back and now Shuda's defeat. Where Sieg wants nothing to do with it because he's got his own shit. I just realized, like, you kind of had the thing you mentioned earlier with, like, how all their fates, like, they have all their different paths that are actually, like, coming together. And here Sieg has that happening with Demon Card, because they're like, we need to take out the Rave Master. And he's like, no, I have to do my different thing. But the different thing also happens to involve the Rave Master. So it's like you have that going on with the antagonists, too. Like, all these fates are converging, so to speak. And which I say, because this arc also deals with those words like that. But anyway, so got back to Haru and Ellie. There's a little bit that's kind of cute where like Ellie gets like a card to the casino, and at the end Mashima does an end of chapter thing where it's upside down, and if you look, it's 3173, which were the numbers. So he's like pretty blatantly hinting at the reveal that's coming, where she got her name from. Because we've already seen her name in the flashback, or the letters on her arm in the flashback. But yeah.
Yeah, because it did make you wonder, well, if she lost her memory, how'd she get the name Ellie? Oh, it's because it's upside down. Ha.
Yep.
I see what you did there, Mashima.
And Japan, that comes up, I guess, is upside down letters, numbers becoming letters. Like, obviously any kid who's played with a calculator will know, because they messed around with that. But there's also, and here it is again. Oh, I think the other thing is, like, Japan isn't, like, they do use a lot of the Roman alphabet, but it's not as, they have their own, like, they have, like, 3 other alphabets to work with. They have, hiragana, katakana, and kanji, So it's not the one that comes first, I suppose. So it's like to Westerners, you know, obviously like we only have like, oh, and I guess numbers are no, they're not an alphabet, they're not a language, but they are another set of symbols. So with Westerners, we only have the 2 sets of symbols. Japan has 5. So like, you know, if they're going to show us upside, like numbers or letters upside down, you know, we're only going to have one other set of symbols to associate with them. So with Japan, I guess it's a little bit more distant. So maybe it is actually more surprising when it happens, because there's also Danganronpa. The first case is particularly infamous because a major clue involves some like mysterious numbers, 11037. And it's literally the name of the killer upside down, except with one stroke missing from a letter, that because 11 isn't supposed to be LL or II or anything like that. It's supposed to be another letter. But yeah, so it's like a Westerner going through that case will literally just see the killer's name like just written upside down, and the characters are like, what are these mysterious numbers? So, and it's a murder mystery thing, so like piecing the clues together is kind of a big thing, but then it's literally just like, there's the answer. There's the fucking answer. But like I said, I'm assuming that I feel like it's hard. Maybe it was super obvious to Japanese audiences too. It is aimed at teenagers. I don't know.
I mean, it's not like it's a reveal that is like, oh, this changes everything about the story now.
Yeah, not in this one. I'm speaking more generally, but yeah, with Rave, it's just like, oh, it's a little bit. So, yeah, I'm just trying to like apply my knowledge of Japan to this whole thing, because there's a difference there. But anyway,
although that did remind me, a difference between this manga, like the translation, and the like what Viz will generally do. I've noticed that like the sound effects don't get translated in this, although like sometimes they do. It's weird. So like the Japanese, I don't know if it's kanji or katakana, whatever it is, but like the sound effects are still in Japanese, and I don't know, it's just interesting.
Yeah, because I don't even think they translate. Do they translate the sound effects? Because sometimes they'll leave the sound effects untranslated, but they'll put like an asterisk by there, and then out in the borders of the panel they'll explain what the sound effect is supposed to be.
Yeah, no, they don't do that here. Like, I know I've seen fan translations that do that.
Yes, that do that.
Whereas, like, Viz will just, like, change it to English letters.
Yes, they'll change the art completely. Okay, I don't know if I said this before. I legitimately, it doesn't matter if I'm reading manga, Western comics, if it's like Viz where they change the sound effect. I never read sound effects. Like, never. They're a complete white noise to me. Which is weird because like I imagine comic authors think a lot about them, and I remember seeing someone who translates bitching about how like they don't know how to translate sound effects, or they do, it's just like they're hard to translate or something, which is interesting. But it's just like for me, I never think about them at all.
I mean,
and
yeah,
I never noticed them.
I don't normally think about them. I guess I haven't read a whole lot of manga, and most of the translations I have read are Viz Shonen Jump stuff. So it was just a thing I noticed that this particular translation didn't do. It is most of the time just like white noise, like it does just kind of fade into the background, like, oh, here's just part of the panel. I'm
actually kind of curious as to if sound effects actually affect the reading experience to other people, or if it's just me, because like I remember one specific moment. I forget the manga I was reading, honestly, but a character like dropped like a cloth, and there was no sound effect written or drawn, but I heard the cloth drop. My imagination played that sound of what it sounds like. Like, I don't need sound effects to hear manga in my brain, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. So it's like, my question is like, why are they even in graphic novels in the first place? Because someone must like hear them or need them for them to be such a consistent. And I mean, I guess they do help with like the frame composition. You know, like especially like I'm thinking of One Piece. Like there'll be a character in the dawn.
Yeah.
The kind of, so it's like it's there in the frame, and it affects how you read the frame because of like where it draws the eye or avoids the eye. But like it's not something I consciously think about. So yeah. And like we're looking through Rave, it like does not have like a lot of major like sound effect things. Like I'm just looking at this big panel where it's a big reveal thing. And Oda would have had a sound effect there, but Mashima doesn't. So now that you bring it up, I'm thinking about it now. So yeah, but yeah, I'm looking through. They go to the Symphonia Museum where they see the history. And like there's the painting of Plu, and he's like a dog with a unicorn horn, but in reality he's like a snowman thing.
I like how the characters are like, oh, is that what you used to look like, Plu? And then the background characters are like, oh, this is what we believe they may have looked like. And it's like, oh, they're idiots. They don't even know. They don't know Plu.
Yes, right. And get a bit of a moment where Ellie, like, she's getting a headache. She runs off and she sees a big portrait of who is actually Princess Reisha, but she looks a lot like Ellie, and like identical apparently. So yeah, like the possible explanation is that like there's the experiment meant to replicate Reisha, and Ellie was part of it. It's weird, and she's getting like weird flashes. So yeah, mystery. No one knows what's happening, but Sieg's got to kill her.
I think this was a problem that I had with early Rave, which it did kind of get resolved as the story went along and more things were explained. Very early on, it felt like there were a lot of mysteries and not a lot being explained, which to me is immediately like a red flag. Because I'm like, I just get suspicious that, like, you know, things aren't quite, the author doesn't quite have the big picture in plan. Like, even with Oda, like, Oda has a lot of mysteries in One Piece that still haven't been explained or were mentioned ages ago. But, like, he does resolve some things, like, over the course of the story. So, like, kind of earns that trust. It took me a bit to do that with Mashima.
Yeah. And, like, having read the story, I can say I was surprised at how much he foreshadowed. Like, because I thought he just, like, legitimately forgot shit and didn't know what he was doing. And there's one thing that I'm still maybe feel that way. Like I said, it depends on how it goes when I reread it. But yeah, like I said, I was surprised that he has more of an idea than what he, like, and Fairy Tail is actually, I'd say honestly, Fairy Tail is worse about it. I won't explain why until we actually read it. Like, with Fairy Tail, the one thing he, like, actually kind of planned out is still kind of stupid and doesn't make sense. So that's kind of sad. But, like, Rave seems a little bit better about that. Which is interesting because it's his first work and it feels very, like, off the cuff. Like, he's even talking about how in the post-volume stuff where the Tower of Din might have been the last arc in the whole series, but he was pushed to keep going, you know? Like, his editor was like, no, you can keep going after this. And it is a very, like, climactic feeling arc where, you know, Haru meets his dad, and the world's gonna end, so it's like, oh, this is the end, right? And it's obviously not, because it's like, they're even talking like, it's the end of the world, and I just, like, look up and it's like chapter 70 out of 295 or whatever, and it's like, the world's not gonna end. So yeah, that
is also another thing I'm trying to keep in perspective, because like you said, it's like, oh, chapter 78, the world's gonna end, and to me, with my Shonen Jump pacing, I'm like, chapter 78, psh, we're nowhere near that. But like, obviously Rave is paced totally differently because it's a different kind of story.
Yeah.
So like,
yes, we're familiar with the beats. Like I was mentioning earlier, how like shit is defeated. Like so many people, like, you know, I wouldn't say so many people, but people less familiar would be like, oh, frustrated because, oh, well, now, you know, Shuda's strength meant nothing because he's weak to these guys. You know, from their perspective, but then we're just like, yeah, seen it a million times, whatever, keep going. So yeah, but
yeah, like One Piece, like, oh, we weren't at like world-shattering stakes until like chapter 500, maybe.
Yeah, well, and when Jinbei, he was on par with Arlong, and you're just like, I don't believe it. You just know. And then now you actually know Jinbei and Arlong, and we've seen the difference, and like, yeah, it makes perfect sense, but you just knew when it first happened. So, yeah. Anyway, to actually talk about Rave on our Rave discussion instead of One Piece, Sieg runs into Ellie, and he's interrogating her a bit, and she's kind of remembering him, and you know, he explains that he has to stop Aetherion, which is a magic she's got inside of her that could destroy the world.
Oh boy, does Sieg Hart make a good first impression? Oh, he's a character.
He's a guy. And yep, he tries to kill Ellie. Haru was told by a fortune teller that there's like a whole fate destiny thing. I suppose. I'm gonna
pick on the translation again. There was this one particular panel. Like, Sieg Hart seems like this serious guy, and he seems like not arrogant or anything. Like, he seems like he's well aware of like the world around him and himself. In some ways, the way he handles this situation isn't great. But just in this particular panel, after he like unleashes one of his attacks, he's like, "That attack was insanely powerful. How can you still be breathing?" And I don't know. It's weird. Because he doesn't feel like a character who would say that. Like, that was insanely powerful. You know, like, just the particular phrasing. Like, that was my strongest attack or something. I mean, it wasn't his strongest attack, but I don't know. It's like, you shouldn't... I don't know. Just the way it was phrased to me comes off as like, huh, that's a little weird. A little nitpick.
Yeah. No, we've talked about the translation a lot, so... But anyway, so, Sieg keeps trying to kill Ellie. It's not working. She's super durable.
What a great guy, that Sieg Hart. What a great guy.
Yeah, she's basically getting tortured, and, you know, she's a dummy, but she doesn't deserve this. No one deserves this. And then Haru comes in to save her, and he's pissed. And of course, here we get his line that I liked, where he's like, you know, a piece that, you know, comes from someone's death isn't worth it. Oh, wait, yeah, and she's having, like, doubts about her whole, like, existence. Like, you know, she deserves to live, but Haru likes her, you know, Haru loves her for who she is, so it's cool. It's good. It's fine.
I mean, it's rough reading those chapters where she's like, kill me. It's like, the pain is too much. Kill me. I do not like this Sieg Hart guy. Like, I get that, you know, he's a complicated guy. He's got some things going on. He seems like he's like caught in between of like the Rave dark card whole conflict. So he's kind of like I don't want to say freelance, but like that's the only term I can think of at the moment. He's not the middleman, but he's just kind of like a guy who's kind of doing his own thing. The Maverick. I don't know what the word is. So it's almost like, in a way, like if like I could see like he's almost like his own protagonist. Like he's a big guy. Like he's gonna take on King. Like he's got to save the world. So like he's got his own thing, and clearly there's more for him to do later. So I did think it was interesting how this sort of conflict was, how it played out. Because at first he's like, oh, I'm just here to save time, so I have to take out this girl. So like in a way, you can see how he could justify his own actions, which are pretty bad. Like torturing this girl, poisoning her. You know, not a good look, man. Not a good look.
Like now you mention it, because he is super brutal, because like when he's fighting Haru, he puts him in the fucking illusion where he sees his loved ones like sacrificing themselves for his like sake, like which I only just realized is like
but like I get what he's doing.
Like I only just realized that that's the last thing he wants. He doesn't want people to sacrifice themselves and die for his sake like that. And like so it's like, oh, you're thirsty, drink my blood. And he sees his sister fucking slitting her wrists or his mom burning to death. So like, oh, it's kind of brutal. Like yeah, and like he just does this shit to fuck with them. Or to fuck them over, because you know he's. But
like in his mind, he's like, oh, I have to do this to save the universe or save time, save the world, whatever. So like, yeah. I mean, he's a mixed bag. Like I don't hate the guy. I don't really like the guy at this point. But like I can see how he's kind of like the in between in the story, where it's like he could be the hero under different circumstances. And I feel like he's kind of framed that way, but also like he's not the hero. Like he does do some pretty terrible things, and like he has to.
He's definitely like he thinks he's doing the right thing, but obviously in this story where you know Haru doesn't like sacrifice, he's doing the wrong thing, like narratively. So he has to lose, you know. Yeah, and he does. He
so like
Haru is able to like find a way like because it's even like you know Ellie's about to explode with Etherion. And Sieg's like, okay, kill her or everyone, or like everyone dies. And Haru, he's the hero. He finds the third option, and that's that's an idea I've had a lot, because I remember reading in the R.A. Salvatore books. Sometimes chapters would open up with like a monologue from the main character, and one that always stuck with me is his description of a hero. This was something else completely unrelated. Never mind, I'm an idiot. But it's just like that was a different one. I'm also about the hero, but yeah, it's like the hero is the one who finds the third option. I'd say in an impossible choice. And yeah, there's Haru doing the hero thing. So that's, I guess, kind of like in line with my perception of a hero.
I liked
so, yeah,
the
cool.
line at the end of the conflict where he says, just the power of believing. To us, that's everything. And so it's a simple thing. It's a simple idea. Like, just, again, it's like the core. Like, have faith, believe in yourself and believe in the heart of the cards. No, I don't know why that came to my head. But yeah, so it's just like, have faith in yourself and like believe that things will work out. And that's what Sieg Hart isn't doing. He thinks he's got to kill this girl to make everything turn out,
right,
because that's all he can think of. He doesn't believe that there's a third option. He's like
a slave to he sees fate, like, oh, it can all be like this. Well, because he sees the one option that's like the most likely, and he can't visualize like the infinite possibility outside of that.
He takes a very practical approach to things, which is kind of like weird in the context of like, oh, torturing this girl to death. Like, that's practical, but like, it makes sense. It makes sense in the narrative. Like, he thinks that like that's kind of the easiest solution.
Well, it's not like he's purposely torturing her. Like, if she just died like a normal person, he wouldn't have to.
Like
he's just trying to kill her.
Sees it as like he's trying to put her out of her misery. Like, yeah.
Like, well, the lightning didn't work, so try poison. It makes sense. It's just horrible to look at, and she's like at the point she's begging for it, and it's like, so yeah. Yeah. Though there were some weird moments in the fight, like sort of how he like introduces information is kind of wonky, because something will happen and then he'll explain it, and it's kind of unsatisfying. Like, I think the weirdest moment was when he uses his regular sword and he's like, oh yeah, your magic can't block metal. And I'm like, why? That does that make sense? I don't... What? And then, like... Maybe it was mistranslation, because it's like... obviously there's the rune save cuts through magic but can't cut through people, where, so it's like, switching, makes sense, but I don't know, maybe it wasn't translated well, maybe it wasn't explained well by Mashima in the first place. I don't know. There was just some weird moments in the actual fight. So yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, I did like how the resolution all played out. Because again, like I like the way that Haru and Sieg Hart are kind of like how they're positioned against each other. Like, at first he thinks that he's killed Ellie and he's gonna leave because he's like, well, I'm just here to save time. I don't have any gripes with you. But then like the situation changes, so it was interesting how they came to blows, and then the way that Haru's power kind of manifested itself. Like, he had to. It was described earlier, like, you just know when you need to use a power, you'll know what it is. And someone out there is going to be like, ass pull, which, I mean, fair enough. Like, I mean, that's I guess how these things work. But, if it has narrative justification, I think it's fine. So, like, in this case, it's like, it's a theme thing where, like, he's able to counter this magician's magic powers in a situation where he otherwise couldn't. He found the technique that he needed the most, and I do think it plays into kind of the resolve, like Haru being so willing. Like, it's a reaffirmation of his character. Like would you sacrifice the entire world to save this one person? But he finds the middle ground, and so like the power up, I think, also kind of goes with that, because not only is he able to absorb the magic, but that's the resolution to the fight, is he stabs Ellie, but he doesn't really stab her, he stabs the Etherean and like absorbs that. So his resolve,
he seals it up, right.
His belief manifests itself in this power-up, which he's able to use to resolve the conflict in this. And I don't know.
Yeah, he
really
still
like
needs to apply it. Like,
stretch.
He was given the perfect tool, but it's like having the perfect tool doesn't automatically mean you'll come to the perfect solution. That's what Sieg was telling him. It's like, do A or do B, and he's like, no, I'm going to do C. So, and yeah, having that sword is what allowed him to do C, but, he still had to be able to see that option in the first place, so yeah.
But that's part of the rave of knowledge, is, it exists within him. So, like, he's got the tools, yes. He just needs to learn how to use them himself. I don't know. He has to find the inner resolve. Like, he has that resolve, he just has to bring it out. I don't know.
Yeah, it was fine. I liked it. I'm glad you liked it too, is what I said. Yeah. So... yeah, see, he's like, oh, maybe we'll be fated to meet again, and he leaves.
There's also the fake out plot twist moment where they're in like the middle of the battle, something's going on, and the girl like sneaks up behind him and just stabs him because it's like, oh no, is he gonna die? Of course he's not gonna die, but like, shock.
Yep.
I am interested to see more of her, to see like what exactly is going to be going on with the rest of this situation. Because again, it's like using here we like Sieg Hart was a pretty new character. Like we hadn't actually seen him do much. We had heard of him, but again, it's like using
he was built up too,
using kind of a built up character who is also kind of new to introduce this other character who we didn't know before, but we're kind of getting to know them. And then we know her now, so she can be used to build up the other people. So good setup here from Mashima. Like this was the part where I was like, okay, yeah, Rave is pretty decent. You know, it's competent.
Yeah, we're starting to see this. Well, see what my current opinion on Rave is now. Like I enjoy talking about it more than I do reading it, I think. So maybe it's close to your opinion of Bleach.
Yeah, that
where
sounds
it's
like my opinion of Bleach. You find
it interesting.
It's like,
yeah, though I'd say Bleach is like much more interesting, and I do enjoy reading it more. But with Rave, it's like, yeah, I'm having fun talking about it, and you know, like you had some things to say about the Sieg stuff, and that's cool.
Yeah, like for me, it's like the more time I spend away from Bleach, the more. Or what was another thing? I had just recently watched Log Horizon, and that's a series that like I appreciate when I'm not watching it. Like I like it more thinking about the ideas that are at play, and like, but then when I actually watch it, it's just kind of like it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so you got to get one that does both, where you like engaging in it and you like thinking about it. So yeah.
So that's kind of how you feel with Rave. It's like I like the ideas. You like it more when you're not actively consuming it.
Yes. Like you know, I wouldn't say I quite like the ideas. Like they're fine. They're not bad. Like it has ideas. Yay! It's a piece. It functions as a story in some regards. Yay! That's all I asked for.
Yeah, because even then, I've said this before on the podcast, but if anyone's new for the Rave discussion, you know, even just like having these ideas, that doesn't make the story complex. Like it's still a simple story.
Yeah, I think it, but I do think because that sentiment does exist. Like I swear, like on 4chan, I've seen people like if you mention themes, people go like, "Oh, it's too deep, huh?" And I'm like, all story have themes. Like depth is just kind of relative anyway. Like what one person seems as deep, one person won't see as deep. And I think that's when it comes to thematic discussions, people automatically assume it's deep because it's not something that's commonly talked about nearly as much as it should be. Like I kind of bitched up. I have a video on my side channel about like English class sucks, and my basically main point of the video is that it is not, themes are kind of like why stories exist, and like understanding themes helps a lot in understanding why stories are told and what is being told through a story. But it's not taught very well at all. So it's like, so I find that frustrating because it's something that should be so basic. Like everyone should understand, like, okay, this is the idea, and this is what, and like understand, like, oh yeah, stories have ideas, and then they get a message across. But it's not like people have that with like literature, the stuff they teach you in English class, but they don't like go back and apply that to the quote unquote low media as opposed to the high, you know, art. You know, so like Rave, and yeah, it's got ideas. What do you know? It's a story. So yeah, but it doesn't like magically make it like a better story or whatever, or it doesn't, you know, it having ideas doesn't mean like, yeah, they're fine. Like I got across the shoot a thing in like a couple sentences, you know, like, look, this character said this thing, this character said this thing, and this thing happened. Like it's, you know, a video of something video worthy, like I go a bit more into because I need more time to explain all the, make all the little connections and observations, you know, because I think it's more interesting. And again, even if I make a video, that doesn't mean I think it's like deep or complex. It just means I thought it was neat. And maybe not everyone got it because I didn't get it at first, so I had to think about it or something, or you know, I just liked how the idea was explored. So yeah,
Fishman Island was the deepest arc in One Piece because they were underwater.
Oh my god! Okay, we're moving on. I'm done with. I'm not touching that one, Mathwiz. No, it's fine. God. They should hire you to be a quality or a translator for whatever.
I can do all the snappy one-liners.
Exactly. But yeah, so yeah, there's the chapter where Musica, he has a girlfriend in this town, and they talk for a bit. He leaves.
I like that's just the description of the chapter. He meets a girl, they talk for a bit, he leaves. That's
yep. he's got other shit going on. He just kind of like leaves. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
I mean, it was an interesting little chapter. Don't know what all to take from it. Yeah.
I don't either, because I don't remember it. I don't know, Musica's character, like, because, yeah, I guess I didn't get as much, I don't remember as much of him as I do for Haru or Ellie, or actually just those two, even though he's around for almost as long, so yeah, but maybe I'll figure out something later. Maybe we have a Musica fan in the comments who will give us a 5-comment, like, dissection of his character and how good he is. I don't know. I'd love that.
Sasuke
anyway.
is a bad character. Musica
exactly.
will be the Sasuke of Rave.
He's actually super interesting, I swear. Anyway. And after that, we get the Jigglebutt Gang. Do we have anything to say about the Jigglebutt Gang?
There were, like, some interesting moments, like, oh, we have a bomb. Oh, no, wait, Plu just sat on the bomb, and we can't move him because it'll detonate the bomb. Or, like, they're running around. They're so utterly incompetent. They're, like, running around the train. They kick down a door, and they just happen to hit Musica, and so they get beaten up.
Mm-hmm. There was actually one joke I liked where the leader guy, he's like... he's trying to distract Haru while the other two deal with the bomb.
Backstory.
And he's like, I'm going to tell you a sad story. And then it like ignores it for like a whole page. And Haru's like, that's the most depressing story I've ever heard. Like, that was pretty good.
Yeah, because he's just trying to distract Haru. And he's like, where are your parents, son? And he's like, oh, my mom's dead. And I haven't seen my father in years. And he's like, oh, that's so sad.
And then you got just a bunch of goofy moments as they run around. They piss off Musica. They walk in on Ellie changing because, of course, they do. Yeah, it's just the anime thing. It's just the anime thing.
I think my least favorite moment in regards to that kind of humor was like when they were like deeper into like the last arc we covered, where there's like this big climactic boss battle. And, like, Ellie shows up, and he just lands, and, of course, has to have his hand on her boob. That's where he fell, because, of course, anime, or manga. And there's probably, like, an attempt at humor there, and it's, like, to lighten the mood. And I'm sure someone is, like...
Yeah, see, that I can like that kind of stuff. Like, you know, Sangatsu no Lion has some great tone shifts. I don't know if you watched my Hidamari sketch video, but yeah, there's one part in like one of in the last season where it's like this whole half of the episode is like super emotional as this one character is dealing with like her future, and her friend like gives her advice and finally like breaks down that wall, and she's like crying and it's super emotional, and then her stomach growls. And there's reasons for that, like, and I fucking, like, I love that because it's, like, first it's, like, super emotional, and then her stomach growls, and I fucking laugh because it's a great tone shift moment during, like, a serious thing. Though it's also more of a lowering tensions. Like, with this example, it kind of lowers the tension, but then it goes back up, so it's kind of, like,
because it's, like, right in the middle of the action, so it's a little weird.
Yeah, so I never thought about that, like, looking at humor from a, like, tonal structure standpoint. Because maybe that's why it's also fine in, like, Sangatsu, because I don't think it, like... It'll be a jarring tone shift, but it won't, like, shift back, like, immediately. Like, with, like, the first episode where Ray is like, oh, he's being depressed and alone, but then he meets the family, and then, suddenly it's energetic and happy, and it doesn't go back to being depressed right after that, because that's the whole point, is they're dragging him out of that. So, yeah, I hadn't thought about that from a structural standpoint. I'll have to remember that for the future.
There's like the tonal thing, and then there's also, like, sexuality can be used to explore characterization in interesting ways. Like, that's a thing that the Monogatari series does, and, like, that's kind of...
I need to rewatch... I haven't seen that in so long, but I know you've been watching
the reason I bring that up is because it's something that's kind of, like, more recently been recontextualizing my stance on stuff. Like, I've made some comments on the Nen Show or in previous videos that I'm not super fond of. Like when I ranted about Kon, I feel like there's I feel like I could have had more context into like I don't think my framing of that is just like fan service.
And Japan in specifically, like I've read an article recently like about like anime perverts in general and how that connects to like people in actual people in Japan and like where they like one example I thought was interesting was the old perfect character like Master Roshi or Jiraiya. the thing about Japan is that like marriages aren't sexually satisfying. Like like I think they did like a survey, and most Japanese people felt that like parent-child relationships were much more important than wife-husband relationships. So it's like sex isn't as much of a thing, and even if you're married, where in America you're expected to be, you know, in a sexually satisfying relationship. So like that's why those old pervert characters exist, because they sort of poke fun at that like aspect of the culture, I suppose. They're like, you know, and that's another thing I guess is that the article mentioned. It's like they're making fun of themselves. Kind of. I think I'll link it actually. Though it's also related to a future video I'm going to do, so you'll probably hear about the
there is the cultural
eventually.
divide too, which is hard to can be hard to parse.
Yes. The article is, I think I will leave it because it was definitely kind of insightful as to like why it's, because it is, you know, sexuality is, how sexuality is treated, especially in children's media, is very different in Japan than it is in from my perspective in America, where like looking at like cartoon art styles, they're very, like, with anime, they're very idealized. Like, the dudes look cool or handsome, the girls look cute or sexy, you know? And so, yeah, there is more sexual, like pervert stuff, where in America, there's, like, no sexuality whatsoever, pretty much. Like, I'm struggling to remember, because, yeah, the art styles are more or less desexualized. Like, I find it weird when people find cartoon characters attractive, because I'm like, why? They don't look attractive, because they're not really meant to be. But humans have a way of sexualizing everything, so that fetishes are weird. But anyway, yeah. So it's definitely an interesting discussion. But it's also a very large cultural divide.
Yeah,
so,
it's definitely not. It's something that I'd want to look into in more depth, like later, or maybe you're gonna do that. I don't know. But like, definitely, like just looking at Rave in particular, it's like this cannot possibly encompass all of that. But even then, like,
yeah, like it's just such a normal thing. In anime and stuff, so it's like obviously there's got to be a cultural reason for. I don't know about cultural reasons for every specific thing, but yeah, I don't think I have anything specific to say on Rave at this time, or how it's, because like I mean we also brushed over like the first scene where Ellie and Haru met, where Haru was hiding under the like desk and she shoved his face in between her legs, and I'm just like, oh my fucking god, Mashima, what the fuck. And yeah, that kind of like didn't even get really brought up. Like she just did it. And, like, I guess, see, Haru isn't, like, he's not really a pervert. Like, he's kind of innocent, I suppose. Because that's the whole thing. He grew up on his island. He's kind of, familiar with the world, with just stuff in general. So, but it's not driven home. Like, compared, like, to Goku, where it's, like, he touched Bulma in her groin because he was like, where's the penis? Because it's played for, his innocence was played for laughs. With Haru, it's not. He just doesn't have any sexual perspective whatsoever.
Yeah, that's maybe where it can be a little weird.
For the most part,
is that like a story like Rave doesn't really explore sex. Well, at least it hasn't yet. It hasn't done much to explore sexuality, and so when like these little moments pop up, I don't really have much to take away from them, except like maybe I can look at it from like a tonal perspective or, some other sort of narrative framing. Like I could have made a comment about oh, that was Ellie's introductory scene and it's introduced with her. I wonder how we're supposed to perceive her. But like it wasn't a big deal. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, because like another thing with Mashima's humor is it's very like stop and go. Like Oda will like reuse gags and build up to jokes, and like again, one of my favorites in the series is when Foxy, like the running gag of him being depressed whenever someone insults him, and that being used in the fight. Like that's a joke it's like a recurring gag in itself, but then it's like transformed in this later instance. With Mashima, like I don't think he has a lot of running Plu being a dog, so yeah, he definitely does have running gags, but it's just like a joke will happen and that's it, and the story keeps going more or less. Like or there'll be there will be lots of gag heavy areas, but yeah, it's I'd have to think about it more.
I apologize. I have led us off on a tangent, but I guess basically like what I wanted to try to say here, I'm aware of my like perspective on how stuff like this can be integrated, and so like I want to try to do less of just saying like, oh, this is bad because I don't like it. Like that's how I feel like the Colin rant came off in the Bleach podcast, as I was just like, oh, I don't like this, but like I wasn't self-aware about it. Like I was saying like, no, this is like a narrative flaw because this is here, which like there's more to consider if I want to actually say that like maybe this is a narrative flaw. Maybe it could be integrated better as seen by different examples, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's that.
I'll keep that in mind for myself. I try to, at least, because there are personal biases, and it's an issue of recognizing, where, like you said, where is it a narrative flaw and where is it just personal preference, So because what's wrong with a piece of media aimed at children to appeal to children, what's wrong with that? But anyway, so moving on, they get to the Luca continent. They're looking for stuff, and they run into demons, and Haru finds out about Gale, who is believed to be his father. You even get a bit where we see a mysterious guy who turns out to be Gale fighting some dudes, and they're like, oh my god, it's you. How did you think about this whole mystery setup? Did you buy for a second that Gale might have been the bad guy of the arc, or I don't know? You've actually mentioned a couple of his beta switches so far, so
yeah. I mean, I didn't know the way Gale had been set up. It's no, he's probably a good guy, but it's also he was in Demon Card, and so
which was true.
Doubtful, but I don't know. Maybe I think I just kind of took it at face value when I was reading it. I was like, okay, he's evil. Okay, I guess this will be explained. And then it was. So I didn't really have much to say about it, I guess. What I did think, and again, I have already said that, Rave has, somewhat quick arcs. So, this, and again, I think this is just coming off of One Piece. This arc on the continent lasted 20, maybe 30 chapters. I don't even know if it was that long.
No, it was 25, because I'm at chapter 50, and it's a little into shortly into the start of the arc, and it ends on 74. So it's about 20 chapters. It's 25 chapters long.
So this was a long arc by Rave standards. But
yes,
to me, it again, because we're coming off of One Piece, where some arcs will be really, really long.
A long arc by One Piece standards is literally 100 chapters because it's fucking Dressrosa.
So
to
me, it kind of feels like things happen. Not even that it's a bad thing that things happen quickly. They arrived to the place, and then Haru was immediately gone. They had just shown there. They had a brief fight. They talked to these royal people, or not royalty, but whoever they were. And then Haru just left, and it's battle, and Gale, and king. So it happened quick, but that's just how Rave works.
See, because you're right, it is only 20 chapters, and for some reason I thought it was longer. It does
because
actually go by
the stakes are really high, so it feels grand, and I guess I don't know. For me, that carries the feeling that it's grand in scale, so naturally the chapter count is grand in scale, but that's not necessarily how that works.
I mean, kind of by Rave standards it is, so yeah.
Because you could compare it to
by,
something
what we're used to coming off of the big three.
Yeah, because you could compare it to something like Gurren Lagann, which is 27 episodes of anime, but it covers a lot of ground in those 27 episodes.
It does. It does, yes. But I did like how it was built up to, because it's there's the whole prophecy of the two winds clashing, and they kind of use the names to because Haru is he's spring, so spring breeze versus Gale, two winds clashing. But no, it's literally there are two people who are called Gale. So, because and it's actually kind of funny as a twist, because fictional characters never have the same name in the work. You can't have two characters named John, because it's confusing to the audience. If someone says John, which one are they talking about? Unless you deliberately use it for confusion, with the two Gales, Rare Groove and Glory. But it also kind of works because it's obviously Gale has, he's also called King. So he's got a different name. So, there's no confusion in the actual conversations, because he's usually not called Gale. But it works for the twist. So, it's fine.
Oh, yeah, now that you mention that, the surname or whatever, that's usually common. There will be siblings and whatever who have the same, last name. But, that first name, that's usually different.
Yes. So, yeah, that was kind of neat. And of course, Haru's pissed off that his dad might be a piece of shit. So he's oh yeah, so and you also get a flashback of his sister, where he's his sister almost drowns trying to get him a fish, and he cries because she's the only one who's been in his life pretty much. So he's here he is ready to cut off his dad if he's actually a piece of shit. He's his dad has been missing, so there's always been that kind of what if, but he's willing to cut off that bond, because his dad's been gone. It could go either way. But it turns out that he's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that was even kind of part of the conflict when he fought Shuda for the first time. Because he was torn about how he felt about who his father might be. And that was, kind of getting in the way of his ability to fight. and so he had to kind of like put that
That's right.
aside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do kind of, I think Haru is sort of interesting as a character, because I think, again, like, comparing him to someone like Luffy, who just kind of acts, and, like, he has his own method of thinking, and, you know, like, in character, like, Haru taking off just to go fight this giant army by himself, instead of, like, waiting for them to invade. That's
something very Luffy, now that you mention it, yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, Haru's got his own, you know, it is kind of very Luffy, but what I mean, like, I guess what I was trying to say is, like, Haru has his own very strong sort of set of beliefs, kind of like what Luffy has. So, like I said, it felt like a very in-character thing for him to do, which, I don't know, like, of course a character should feel in character. I don't know quite what I'm trying to say, but I don't know, it was, I like the development.
I mean, well, yeah, I guess to compare, since we're doing a Luffy comparison, like, compare this to the Enies Lobby thing, where Luffy just charges in. This is like a way more serious moment for Haru. Like, this isn't like a level of anger he normally has. So it's like they do the same kind of thing, but with Haru, it's this anger, like it's this anger driving him to do this. Where Luffy, it's just Luffy.
I guess I also think that because like there were other arcs where like he wasn't eager to fight someone at first, like he needed a reason to want to fight.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, because that also ties into this being a more serious moment, because he's always, you know, he's more like, you know, he'll probably try to find the peaceful solution if it's available. Not so much this time. He ends up getting like super wounded, and like then we get the cutaway to Shuda. He seems to have a robot arm. His face is all scarred up, and then Haru, his dad just walks by him. Oh no, that's right. His dad was like, he appeared like he was gonna cut Haru because Mashima did a Kishimoto fake out. But no, it wasn't quite exactly how it was going. And then King comes out. Oh yeah, speaking of, I thought about this earlier. We have the Kishimoto fake out. We need to use the Mashima bait and switch, because Mashima's done this like 3 times where like it seemed like it'd be red herring. He's like red herrings towards one thing, and then it's actually this other thing, like with the 2 Gales. So I don't know, it just seems right to call it the Mashima bait and switch. So I'll try and remember that. But yeah, so the 2 Gales meet and fight. And there's some what's it called? Bit of exposition, because they do have a past with each other. Oh yeah, and of course it happens to be the day that like the big ritual happens to make the really strong end claim dark bling. And this tower looks cool actually. The Tower of Din, like when you get the full spread with all the like tendrils streaking off of it. I don't know, Mashima's art can be cool sometimes. And I actually do like the Palace Guardians, because they look like really inhuman and stuff. Like honestly, they're some of my favorite designs of Mashima, probably because they don't look human. Like I don't know, they just look neat, and they got a lot of detail. So Mashima probably fucked himself by drawing things with so much detail that he has to draw over and over again. But yeah, so like, you know, that the whole thing gets, you know, set up, and Haru's able to like, oh no, my dad's not a piece of shit, and they're gonna go fight. They're gonna, father and son, gonna go help save the world from the Enclame. And of course, like once you see the Palace Guardians, you're like, oh boy, here come the fights, all the fights, and like it even separates them up as Shounen do. I'm trying to remember if I had anything to say about these fights. Oh yeah, the Let, the one lizard guy, he has honor. That's. I wonder
if he is. I'm trying, like, because it always happens for every story. There's got to be the aesthetic character, the patented Mathwiz aesthetic character, and so I'm wondering if this dragon guy might not be it, because like
maybe
he comes back later, so he's gonna be a recurring character. So maybe, I mean, he's all about like honor.
He is indeed a recurring character. I can confirm
and, like,
that, having read this series.
He's got this, like, I don't know, my aesthetic has a bit of, like, edge to it. So, like, he's a bit of an edgy dragon. He's got, like, the thing, like, his eyes in shadow.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, they go, everyone shows up, and they all split up. Haru does indeed fight Let, Dragon Boy. See, I'm looking through, I'm trying to remember if I had anything to say about these fights. Like, there's some, like, I don't know. Like, as far as, I don't know, for this arc, like, I'm remembering it, and all I can think about is the things that happen. So, like, and there's a lot of things that happen. Like, it's a busy arc, but it's also a whole lot of nothing, because it's just like, yeah, the characters are fighting the Palace Guardians.
Yeah, I don't have a... I think the only fight that kind of intrigued me, but even then I didn't have a super huge takeaway from it, was the Let versus Haru fight. Because he goes up against a guy who is, I guess atypical compared to the other guys, because he is not devoted really to Demon Card. He's just there because he wants a good fight. He's a fight boy. He wants to fight.
Yeah. Whereas like Haru has a reason to fight, and well, like Let is even like, I think after the fight he's like, okay, I'll die now. But Haru is obviously not going to senselessly kill someone. So he's got a different perspective, and he kind of has
this like balance mindset where it's like things have to be fair. It's got to be a fair fight, honor. So after their fight, when Haru's got to fight a second guy, he's like, hey, I'm gonna tip you off to this guy's powers because you're exhausted from our fight. Yep. But wait, and then the reason why I brought up this fight was because Haru gets another power up. He gets the
yes.
What's it called? What's the sword
fire
he gets?
Ice swords, I think, or it's called Blue Crimson.
Yes, because the sword breaks off, and then he's like, no, the blade is now a sword. He's got two swords, and he's got a fire and an ice sword. And I think like the character moment that I thought like there's got to be something there, because obviously the one guy was just there to fight. Like that's his motivation, is he wants to fight people. Whereas Haru doesn't want to fight. Like, he wants to stop the fighting. And so, I don't know. I figured there's something there.
Yeah, well, I guess how I might frame it is that he's fighting, but he's also protecting. He's doing two things. Like, he's fighting for a purpose, whereas Let is fighting without a purpose. So, he's able to... Two swords is what I'm trying to say. Like, fighting and protecting, sort of. Which it might have been, like, more accurate if it was a sword and shield. So, maybe I'm not quite on the nose there. But,
Yeah, I'm not sure if like the power up in particular, like the nature of the power up.
That's what I was.
It's more like the fact that there is a power up, and that there is perhaps a character moment attached to it.
Yeah, see, I don't know if he's changing per se, but he's definitely like he has his ideology, and because he has that ideology, he wins. Is kind of the thing.
Yeah, it might not be. I'm not entirely sure on it. Might not be a moment of. I wouldn't call it a moment of character growth, but like again, character reaffirmation, which is like, maybe. Yeah. I'm grasping at straws here. Maybe again, like if
we're trying,
if I have the whole story in mind, maybe I'll be able to piece it together.
Yeah, reading is a skill, and it's hard to read when you're not paying attention. And it's like there's a lot of things happening. So I'm like, am I paying attention? I don't know. There was this one funny moment where Haru's like, yeah, Musica's the toughest guy I know. There is no way he can lose. And then it like cuts, and then Musica's getting his shit kicked in.
Yeah,
I remember laughing at that when I first read it. So it's like, Musica can't lose. Musica loses. No, he doesn't lose. But the idea was funny. And he does the fucking Kenpachi thing where he's being attacked by invisible weapons, so he lets himself be impaled so that it's like an inverse Kenpachi where Kenpachi was blind, so he let himself get cut so he could see. Musica, the weapon's invisible, so he lets himself so he could follow the trail back to the duties.
I can't believe Kubo ripped off Mashima.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't think I got as much out of the other fights.
Another thing I've been noticing, because Mashima will do his little character blurbs, and a lot of the time he will mention, sometimes he'll mention, oh, I had this character and this, backstory in mind for, even before I started Rave. But then there are other times where he's like, oh, this character, wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with him, but I wanted to have this character. So again, I am still a little skeptical of Mashima. What does and doesn't he sort of know what he's working with? That's
the question that we'll never know the answer to for sure.
That was a sentence.
We can only guess. Yes. I remember. I forget what writer said this. I thought it was an interesting way of framing it, because basically they talked about writing as there are architects and there are gardeners. Architects build and they plan shit out and then they build it, whereas growers just sow a bunch of seeds and let it happen. Though so in this
I've
case,
seen that too. Was that a comment in the last episode? Maybe I feel like
was it me?
You
I don't remember.
Or did you say that to me?
Maybe I've mentioned it before.
I don't know.
I might have mentioned it before and I forgot. Because it's like, so with Mashima, it's like he's got some architecture, but he's also doing some growing. So because all writers, they have some balance between the two, you know, or some areas of the two. Like Stephen King, I think, is notable for like he just goes and writes. Like he has ideas, but you know he doesn't plan out his endings. He just lets them come out naturally. So I've heard some of his books can be like, I don't know. I'm not going to say too much because I have a fan of Stephen King on my server, and I know he's listening. I bet he's listening. And I haven't actually read any Stephen King books. I just know he's. I guess he would be considered more of a grower, like a gardener, like writer wise. So yeah, it's a concept I've heard of. So it's interesting to think about. Oh yeah, this one thing bugs me though, because we get introduced to another one of the Blue Guardians. The thing that bugs me is her design, because she's like a hot lady with a bird beak like glued onto her face, and I'm just like, okay. I guess you wanted to have the bird lady have boobs, Mashima. Okay, sure.
Yeah, because like the bear guy was an actual bear. This one is just like mostly a human, just with like one or two features.
I mean, looking closely, like she does have feathers on her like shoulders and possibly face. Like she has dark skin, so I can't tell what's necessarily supposed to be feathers. Like I think she does have feathers on her face, but she also doesn't seem to have feathers on her boobs. So okay, whatever. But yeah, she gives away the Rave of Combat. She has a moment with her descendant who is trying to fill those shoes or whatever. That I don't know. And yeah, Haru gets up to the top floor to help fight King, and they have a big old fight. Shit, did I have anything to say about that big old fight? Do you have anything to say about that big old fight? Oh, there was a flashback too. Oh, that's right. Oh, there's like so much happening, but again, like, cause like there's like a bomb inside Gale Glory's body that will explode and destroy a huge part of the population, and then they get a flashback where we find out how they met and formed Demon Card. Which wasn't always a terrorist organization, but Rare Groove King, he like after Gale left it, he kind of just used it for his ends, and like he's like, oh, this is justified. And oh, that's right, the backstory with the Empire, where like after Demon Card went like evil, Gale he chose not to take action himself. Like he's like let the Empire do it. And they use the opportunity to like completely like fuck everything up and kill kill King's family. So yeah, that happened and made him an angry dude. I guess that's an understandable reason as to why King would turn into, you know, doing the shit he does, I suppose.
This is where.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. He killed Haru's mom. I forgot about that. You were going to say something?
Yeah, this was where the aforementioned quality of the dark bring, that it like corrupts people. This was where I thought maybe it kind of came back again, because like there was obviously Gale had started the Dark Card, like they had formed the organization, and before Gale left, it's like, oh, everything's good, like they're friends. King isn't evil. Things are good. But then, like, he leaves, and then, like, things become evil, and it's like, oh, they've got the Dark Bring. And so, like, King wasn't totally evil. Like, it was only after Gale betrayed him and inadvertently got his family killed that he kind of went off the deep end. But I thought, like, maybe that was kind of, you know, there's a bit of influence there.
Like the Dark Blings made him, pushed him to that, like, to push the organization to, you know, being, well, because, like, that's why Gale came back, because he heard that Demon Card was evil, and he's like, wait, what, how? And then, well, because, like, King kind of justifies it, like, he says, like, or what did he say exactly? You know, he talks about how it's successful now, yeah, and yeah, even like he forces Gale, like he has a bunch of like dudes with guns, with magic guns. I don't know, maybe real guns. It's like the setting's like fantasy thing, but they still have like cars and shit. So yeah, and tanks. So yeah, that maybe it is. Well, see, I guess that's the thing with the corruption, because it's like, because Gale obviously has this tragic reason he became like, or King rather, why he became the way he did. And like, do you need the corruption aspect to the blings there to have that?
Yeah, so, no, probably not. Maybe not. I'm just thinking, like, if there is supposed to be a connection here, like maybe there's one.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Because I never thought about that. So, and maybe I'll try to keep an eye out for it in later episodes. So, oh yeah, did you see the popularity poll?
Yes.
Did you see that Plu is almost more popular than Haru?
Wait, what are these numbers? Oh wow, that is actually kind of close.
Yeah, he's like within 200 votes or 120 votes of the main character, damn near.
And
so
he's
it's
the mascot character.
I've never seen a mascot character placed that highly. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, okay, Naruto didn't really have a mascot character. Kon did place like 5th once, I think. He placed decently high in Bleach. And One Piece Chopper, he's been in the top 10, I'm pretty sure. Or no, he is usually in the top 10, but not like fucking 2nd place.
Yeah,
so
that was kind of surprising. I was like, oh, Plu's number 2, okay. And then again, like, I was having some trouble, getting attached to the characters initially and trying to remember who they were. Like, there are a lot of these names that don't have faces. I'm like, who are they?
Like, looking at actually, like, one that kind of makes me scratch my head is 7th place is Nakajima, who's like the sunflower thing on their door at Haru's house, and he's like more popular than Haru's dad, Haru's sister, Shuda, who's probably my favorite antagonist so far. So that's kind of sad. He got beaten by a talking door thing.
Maybe people just really like those gag comics in the graphic novels.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, also maybe there's also always the possibility of the anime, like, because that also can affect the popularity polls. Because I mentioned how recent characters will usually do better in the polls. You can especially see it in One Piece because like Kaku, I think in the Enies Lobby character poll was number 9. He's just like the square-nosed Enies Lobby antagonist guy. Like thinking about the whole story, it's like, why is that guy so popular? But during Enies Lobby, like, yeah, he's in the mind of everybody, so of course he's gonna rank higher. Law did 2nd place during Dressrosa. Same logic there. But the anime kind of does that too because it calls attention to whatever's airing at the time. So maybe the anime had started, and maybe not because usually they reference it on the cover pages and stuff. So I don't know. But he would have been in the first episode, so that's just a thought I had just now. But yeah, I don't even remember most of the other characters. Like there's no joke ones. In the like Hiro Mashima himself did. The authors always rank fairly highly in their polls, which is fun. But yeah.
I also thought it was kind of surprising that what's his name? Griffin, the weird creature thing, that he was like 6th. I don't know, maybe it's just like the
Griff, yeah, that was another weird one. Yeah, Griff is like
that it's just like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Why does everyone love the Rave mascots so much? Because yeah, Plu's really high and Griff is way higher than he should be. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, King scars Gale's face. The wife comes in, and King kills her, Sakura. See, that's King is basically, he's going to take everything away from Gale so that he suffers as much as he did, and then something kind of interesting happens because like he gave this sob story, and Haru feels bad for King after everything. Like he's like, like even because it's like King killed his mother. But then Haru says, King was, like, bad things happened to him, too. Like, he just hates the conflict that led to all of this. So, yeah, I like that reaction. It's very Haru, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. And, yeah, of course, he wants to put an end to all the fighting. But there's still going to be fighting. And the action keeps going.
What I thought was kind of interesting, like in the fight, King uses kind of a reflection of the 10 power sword that Haru uses, and then he ends up pulling out this technique that Haru hasn't even used yet, that he didn't even really know about. But then like later in the fight, Haru is able to use that because again, it's like a thing. He, you know that you know, but you don't know until you know.
It's plot convenience. it's an ass pull. But yeah, Haru actually does like kind of beat the shit out of King a bit, and then King does his he uses his monster form and goes nuts. That happens. But Gale stops him, I thought I had something to say. Oh yeah, and teamwork, friendship. Gale and his Haru beat King and he also used Plu earlier. Friendship beats Solo.
Yeah, that was an interesting power up. The Rave of Combat, and it's like, oh, it's not for me, it's for Plu, and so Plu just like stands there and deflects the attack.
Yep.
But it's goofy.
And I actually like how it kind of like because we saw Plu save Shiba before in the flashback because he blocked the explosion.
Oh yeah.
And now so now we know why he's so who's durable enough to block an explosion that killed 1/10 of the planet's population. So yeah, because of the Rave, because Rave is strong. So yeah, that's nice. Nice little connection there. Oh yeah, and King gets a bit of a moment where he's like dying, and he's like, oh, if you don't kill me, I'm going to destroy, because Gale's got the bomb in him. But Gale chooses not to kill his, to cause more. They go the Haru route of not causing more violence, and Gale he blows up Demon Card headquarters instead. Because he tries to end their fate, because that's another thing that comes up again is like the fate of the Glory and Rare Groove lines, constantly fighting, but Gale decides to like kill himself and blow up Demon Card to end that. Also, there's a weird thing, because there's a character called Jeeg, and he was mentioned way earlier, except I swear to God the translation called him Sieg, so I'm like, oh look, it's Sieg, it's Sieg Hart, he's in the Empire. But no, it's called Jeeg, and because he also has an eye tattoo, but it's on the other eye, and it looks different. It actually looks more like Jagan's, because Jagan kind of has a hook thing.
Oh, that wasn't
we haven't seen Jeeg's
Jagan. I guess I just assumed it was him.
No, yeah, because his name's even combined. It's Sieg plus Jagan. It's Jeeg. I don't know what's going. Yeah, I forgot about this character. But no, because Jagan he's one of the Oration Seis. Sieg is in Demon Card, but he's not one of Oration Seis. And then Jeeg. I mixed up the names now. Jeeg is in the Empire. And they all have eye tattoos. So yeah.
Well, it's too bad we'll never see Jagan again, because the Oration, Demon Card HQ was blown up. The Oration 6 were wiped out. Seis were wiped out. They won't be back.
See, I love how you just don't buy it for a second. I love that.
I guess that's like the narrative notion that like, oh, why would they be introduced if they would just not show up? That doesn't happen.
Like, let's be honest, it would be hilarious if they did just all die in a fiery explosion, but that's not it. No, that's not what's gonna happen. I say hilarious not because like, oh no, these characters are dead, but because just of like the setup and deliberate not payoff or that would have happened. Though I guess Mashima even talked about like, wouldn't it have been convenient if all of the story threads were wrapped up here? So yeah, he avoided that. Like, the inconvenient thing happened. Oration Seis lived, so.
I did think it was also sort of interesting in those end of volume notes where he made a comment about how like he hadn't really figured out what he was going to be doing with Gale until he like started figuring out the King storyline. So again, that does give me a little bit of substance to my suspicion that all the elements getting set up without necessarily early on without necessarily again, like the mysteries are being set up, but not as much as being explained. So I'm a little nervous about the direction of where things go.
It all depends. Like, as long as he doesn't contradict himself, it's fine, I think. But
yeah, because in this case, it did work out. I think it worked out.
Yeah, like I don't think this didn't contradict anything. Oh, I guess the weird thing was like Sakura, Haru's mom was living with them on the island, and then she just happened to be, just a little weird, like, oh, she's there now, that's okay. Whatever, but it's whatever. It's not too big a deal. So yeah, and then, but anyway, King, he regrets all he did, and, he dies, he redeemed himself by, giving up on his goal, but the tower is coming down, and everyone's got to escape, and they all get split up. Haru and Gale end up together, and Gale ends up dying to save Haru from the destruction of the tower. And yeah, he also mentioned, or I
don't know, the way that was handled was it felt a little weird, but it's probably fine. just because I figured he was going to have a heroic sacrifice and die in battle. But that's not how that went. So
But
it's like, is he
battle,
gonna
yeah.
actually live? Are we actually gonna see, Gale be involved in the shenanigans? But no, that didn't happen. Which, I mean, again, like I figured this was how things were gonna play out going in. Like I figured Gale was not going to survive the fight because I don't know.
Yeah. Too many death flags. I don't even know what those death flags were in this instant, but the concept
Well, I don't know. I
is
just
there.
think again, like
So, yeah.
the passing of the torch thing. That is just a shonen staple. So I don't know. I guess I just assumed that this was going to be like not even the midpoint, because we're still a third of the way maybe into the story, if that, a fourth.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like
closer to a fourth.
it seemed like a big moment that like, that's just, like the big guys are gonna duke it out, and Haru is gonna have to sacrifice here. I don't know what I'm getting at, but like it makes sense in my head.
And I forget exactly where it goes with Haru's character, if anywhere, because or maybe I'm just not I'm forgetting what was literally read, because it's like, he doesn't want people to die, and then nope, his dad's dead. Not through fighting though. I guess maybe that's what he wanted to avoid, because with people dying through fighting. So he dies because of basically an accident. So maybe that's why it happened the way it did. And this is the part where I actually cried a little bit, because again, because Haru, like, this is actually kind of, because Haru, he breaks down because his dad died, and I thought, wasn't thinking about Haru and his dad. I was thinking about Mashima himself, and the fact that he didn't know his dad. And so, the fact that Mashima put this, Haru crying over his dad in his manga, I guess I connected that to Mashima himself. I don't see Haru crying, I see Mashima crying, if that makes sense. And that got me emotional. So that's why I cried a little bit reading the Rave, because I thought about Mashima not knowing his dad. And, because Haru still didn't, barely knew his dad. Because think about how Mashima portrayed Gale. This hero, he's really strong. He's stronger than Haru. He's a good person. Almost like some kind of idyllic figure, but then he still takes that away from Haru. And then, so Haru got in, because Mashima didn't actually know his dad. He probably heard stuff secondhand about his dad. So basically, what I saw, the paratext made me cry. The personal connection between the author and what he's putting into his work. And I was like, oh no, I felt things. So yeah. And yeah, then you get the moment with the roads that are going their separate ways, but maybe are going back together at some point, and Haru's ready to keep going on his journey. And this is the part where you're like, oh boy, I'm almost done, 1 chapter left. Oh no, 3 chapters left.
Another Mashima bait and switch, but this time it was the chapter numbers. I have a bone to pick with these bonus chapters that aren't numbered properly, because even when Bleach did the turn back the pendulum, it's like, well, now you're throwing off the numbers and everything's
yeah, well, because it's bad, because my anime list sometimes they count the extra chapters, so especially think about for Fairy Tail for some reason, because it's the last chapter is 645, but my anime list lists it at 6 or maybe 500s, I don't know. But it lists as 49 because it counts, and Bleach, it's the same thing with Bleach, where it ends at 690 something, but it counts turn back the pendulum, so it's actually 704 or something like that. So it's stupid. Is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, but yeah, there's a bit of an arc here with Shiba, the former Rave Master, and he's joining the military. And he's, he's fighting for money mostly, and then he meets Reisha, who's the princess, and they have a bit of a thing, and he's, because I guess the thing is he's, he wants to help, be the hero or whatever, but he needs to he has to find a cause to fight for, because he was just fighting for money or himself before, but now he's fighting for others, I guess, is the whole thing with his bits. But he eventually does. Reisha sacrifices herself to make the Rave, and Shiba becomes the Rave Master, the first one. And I don't think I had anything specific to say about it otherwise. Oh, that's right. And it ends with the Rave comes from her name, Reisha Valentine, the first letters of her first name and the first and last letters of both her two names. So, yep, sure, whatever. Yeah, that happened. But yeah, everything's done. There's like one little chapter of everyone like splitting off. Oh yeah, Let is still he's a dragon. Okay.
Alligator man.
And yep, and they're all looking for Star Memory. And yeah, that's it. They go off to they're going to Symphonia to find the where the whole thing happened that destroyed so much of the world. And that's where we finally end off. That was a long discussion, but admittedly because we weren't talking that much about Rave. Like for a good like third to a half of it we were probably talking about not Rave.
I don't know if it was quite that much. I feel like we had a decent bit of Rave.
Maybe. Yeah. Surprising amount, yeah. But yeah, I think we've said enough of our opinion on the story so far. Oh god, I didn't even think about the arc rankings. I haven't even been keeping track. How many arcs are there?
No!
This is like the eternal curse of the Nen Show, is the dread about having to come up with arc and character rankings. Like, I haven't thought about it because we spent so much time and effort on it with One Piece, and now I'm just like, oh yeah.
I mean, to be fair, when we did the Bleach arc rankings, we just kind of lumped the opening stretch together.
Yes. This will be a little bit harder to do. I mean, the Wikia does divide the arcs, I don't know. I'll give you a list of the arcs and we can figure it out as we go.
Oh no.
Oh no, we have to read more Rave Master. But like I said, I enjoyed discussing it more than I did reading it. And hopefully you enjoyed the discussion. It was less, angry and bitter than, and I'm glad for that. Because it could have been. Imagine if we did Rave first. Like before the big three. Oh god. So any closing thoughts?
I guess I like it a little more than Zombie Powder. It feels like a competent story with like it had some ideas down the stretch.
Is liking something more than your least favorite finished manga ever like that high a bar? I mean, it's not. You know what? For Mashima stuff, yeah, let's say that. It's not the worst manga you've ever read. Like that's an accomplishment.
I mean, like initially as I was going through, like I said, the first 30 chapters were dull. So initially I was like, it's about on par with Zombie Powder. But the thing about Zombie Powder was it got canceled.
Yep, so, and it never had like maybe it would have been better if it kept going, because that's the thing is shonen stories like they do
that's what made me sort of wonder if Rave had managed to get published in Shonen Jump. Like I don't know for whatever reason why it's in Weekly Shonen magazine. Maybe Mashima never even attempted to go for Shonen Jump. But like would it have made it in Shonen Jump?
That would be interesting if it. Yeah, when running against, because like it is very like they might have gone. We already have a goofy action comedy series. It's called One Piece, and Mashima was like, "Well, fuck," so he moved to a different magazine, And Rave was a success in that magazine, But again, like that's the question: is would it have been successful in Jump?
It's just interesting because again, you could say like, well, if Zombie Powder had been in a different magazine, would it have gotten more of a chance? Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. That's it's interesting.
But
to think
yeah,
about,
I guess again, I'm moving the topic away from Rave. Rave, it's fine. It's fine.
It exists. I'm not looking forward to reading more because I'm expecting it to be boring. But discussing it should be fine.
Oh no, it's like Rave already had all of its good ideas. It's all downhill from here.
Oh no. So yeah, moving forward, we are reading chapters 75 through 140. So another fairly decent sized stretch. The stretch after that is going to be the longest though, apparently, because it's really awkward to divide these parts. So,
I mean,
yeah, because the
at least like where we left off here, like Mashima kind of said like, hey, this is what I'd call the end of part 1. So like it.
Yeah, this was like a perfect place to end off for the first stretch, but the rest of the story, because obviously these manga authors aren't writing their stories to be read in a podcast format, like specifically like this. So, yeah. But anyway, I'm surprised I had as much to say as I did. I mean, most of it was just summarizing, but hey, whatever. So yeah, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.